Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new live stream. We're going to be covering the election tonight out of Canada, which will determine who's going to be in charge, who's going to be their prime minister until the next election, wherever that may be called. Make sure you guys like the stream down below so we can get started. You guys know the drill, 100 likes, the camera goes on. Right now we're at 89, so not a lot of work to do. But do make sure you guys like the chat. Make sure if you are new, you subscribe. And we're ready to get started. So definitely this was a race that was supposed to be an easy win for the Conservatives until Justin Trudeau was forced out of the picture. And everything since that moment has just gone downhill. You have the pressing issue in Canada for some reason of, oh, Donald Trump said mean things, therefore we have to make it an election issue here, despite the fact that Pierre Poilievre, we want to make sure we're saying it right, Pierre Poilievre is no fan of Donald Trump. We know that. He's the best option for Canada because, Trump's got a 10% approval rating in Canada, something between 10 and 20. Definitely not very popular whatsoever up in the great north, the little brother, we can call them, to the United States. Not exactly very popular up there, but the way that he's handled it has not exactly bode too well for his campaign, which is why currently in Polymarket he's in the 20s. He was in the 90s not too long ago, and by not too long ago, I mean the beginning of the year. And you could see this in the polling. And it's definitely Trudeau being forced out that was the big factor that led to everything else. Because look at this. Here's the opinion polling. The day Trudeau was forced out, the Liberals were losing polls to the NDP. The NDP was polling somewhere around 20% and over that in some polls, and the Liberals were below. The NDP has polled as low as 5% recently, and the third party, out of the data we've seen so far, only the maritime provinces are in, the third party vote share is abysmal, absolutely abysmal. The Bloc Québécois has lost support in Quebec. The Greens have lost support. The People's Party, which made some waves last cycle, has just not exactly really made much of an impact. They're down. So regardless, you look at it, you could place the blame on a lot of different factors. I think that the blame is probably, in my opinion, going to go on either A, the people of Canada, who could not see the basic fact that Mark Carney is the same thing as Trudeau, the same policies as Trudeau, and Pierre Poilievre, who is not exactly people will say he's made it a focal point of his campaign. There's a lot of distancing from Trump, attacking Trump. I'm not asking him to be friends with Trump. In fact, he should go out there and say, yeah, I'll stand up to him. We need a strong leader to get Canada back on track, not like the leadership that you guys have had. Because if Trump is to blame, in my opinion, it's more because he made Trudeau look like a little bitch, for lack of a better term, excuse the language. Back when he was at Mar-a-Lago, you even had the media attacking Trudeau in Canada, and that is something that doesn't happen very often. He kind of had like a Biden arc, and then he was forced out, just like Biden was forced out. And then you see the exact same thing happen, except, this was the polling. Kamala Harris shot up in the American polls. This one's a little bit different. Obviously, the third-party share dropped in the polls here that we know. RFK Jr. even dropped out, endorsed Donald Trump in the process, is now a part of his cabinet. That definitely played a role in the election. This is a little bit different because you have a leader on the Liberal side who's very generic, and he's able to galvanize enough people who were voting third party because they didn't like Trudeau to vote for him. And as a result, Poilievre is just sitting there. He's a sitting duck. What is he exactly going to do? Well, there's not a lot you can do. Usually Conservatives don't even win elections in Canada, but when they win, they don't get 50% of the vote. It's not Alberta. It's not all Saskatchewan. We'll see what provinces he even wins. Polymarket has him winning a majority of seats, or ridings is what they're called, in Manitoba, in British Columbia, which would be, a shift from 2021 in some of these. Obviously, British Columbia is one of them. Manitoba is one of them. But you got to do better than what they're projected in Ontario. They're projected to just absolutely get decimated on Ontario, third place in Quebec, with the Liberals being favored in overwhelming majority instead of the Bloc, which I believe took Quebec in 2021. That is not, or at least they got close to it. That's not a really good place for them to be. So I'm the bearer of bad news for Canada. I'm not going to sit here and say that I have like all this, this emotion into it, because it's really just not my country. I don't really have a dog in the fight, but it is kind of sad to see what's go on in Canada. Now, the reason why I didn't start streaming when the polls first closed is because you have a few hours of the Maritime polls being closed, and then Quebec comes in, Ontario comes in, British Columbia eventually will come in. So we'll kind of be monitoring the results as they do pour in. But judging based on what we're seeing so far, it's a lot of the same. The Conservatives have won a seat, and they've been projected the winners of a seat that the Liberals won in 2021. But the problem is that they're not winning enough of them. They're favored, or they're up in a couple of them, which would be a net gain, because it is true that the Liberals have led a seat in Nova Scotia that went for the Conservatives back in 2021. But will it be enough? They may gain, but gaining is not going to get you there. At least can they stave off a majority Liberal government? That's a tough question, but it is first past the post, kind of like the House of Representatives. It goes by riding. We'll see what happens. But the NDP's falling off. The Bloc Québécois, they've fallen off. The Greens have fallen off. The Conservatives are probably around 40-some% support, but those third parties so far, I know it's a little early, but so far, they're not even combining for like 7-8% of the vote. And that's not exactly where you want to be as a conservative in Canada. You need the Liberals, because very liberal there, breaking up their votes. And on top of it, the Conservative Party is relatively liberal in some ways compared to the National Party. But you look at these other parties that are in the mix. The People's Party, 1% so far. They did possibly cost the Conservatives a lot of ridings, which I think last cycle was more of the fault of the Conservatives because of the fact that you did have weak leadership. I mean, their leader is too busy wearing double masks at pride parades, not exactly somebody that's going to resonate with even remotely conservative-minded people, even up in Canada, to the point where he's losing support, and rightfully so, to this third party. Now you get a little bit of a better leader, not great, not like America standard conservative, but it's Canada. It's like California if it was a country. In a way, it's like Minneapolis, it's like Hennepin County, and maybe like a little bit of the suburbs were in an entire country. That's what you get in Canada. You don't have a very big rural population. You do have a very big migrant population, and that's something that has overwhelmed Canada. It's been an issue, and even the Liberals have had to soften their rhetoric on it. Soften their pro-immigration rhetoric because of the fact that it's become unpopular, but the Conservatives have really failed to capitalize on that. You have a massive amount of third world migration pouring into Canada, but still the Conservatives have not exactly conserved, or they're not even willing to touch it nearly as much. Pierre for a while against Trudeau, but even then recently the rhetoric has not exactly been there, which, he's losing support, but I don't think that's why he's losing support. He hasn't really lost much support, to be honest. If you look at the graph, it's mainly been the Liberals gaining from these other parties that have just fallen off. I mean, they are definitely to blame. And the fact that Pierre has not controlled the narrative down the stretch is honestly on him. People love to blame Donald Trump for everything. They can blame Trudeau and him dropping out for everything. I think that you have to start to look at the leader, because you had a 99% chance to win. You didn't get to blame that in a foreign country. And of course, Canadian Conservatives will blame that on Donald Trump. And I'm not going to say that his rhetoric has really helped in the grand scheme of things for the Canadian Conservatives. But at the same time, it's like, what exactly do you want? If Canadians are this dumb where Trump is your number one issue and you have to vote liberal for the guy Trump endorsed, by the way, because of it, it says a lot about your country. It says a lot about these people. They love to claim they're superior to Americans because, I don't know, they're above us on a map and they say they're the nicest people in the world. Until you say anything about Canada, then they turn into some of the biggest blowhards walking the face of the earth in existence. But that's the way they are. They want to spite America. They want to differentiate their identity from the U.S. Well, not exactly when it came down to Trudeau with Biden, because they reelected him. But you're seeing what's going on now. So it's their problem. We'll watch the results. I don't think an upset's really brewing. It's not really something where I have this massive dog in the fight in. But you'll have a lot of people with a lot of different takes about it, and those are going to be worth monitoring. So we'll see. We have some super chats coming in. Tommy3265 says, I hate you, Red Eagle Politics. Well, I love you too, Tommy. Thank you for the 5. LinnerX52 says, your best case scenario for Canada results, I'd probably be a minority conservative government, but I don't see it as of now unless there's a massive turnaround in like Ontario, Quebec. Chief Officer Henry Wild says, use CBC map. It's better. We have both up for sure. I like using both. It's definitely, I mean, we can see certain like highlighted precincts. I mean, it's definitely, it's going to use a lot more memory for sure. So that's something to keep in mind. Hamster Eater 96 says, I don't want Canada to be a state. It's basically an enclave of India at this point. Yeah, I mean, like I said, Canada is definitely something I don't want to be a state either. Territory, maybe, but then again, it's like, is that even feasible? Probably not. Trump wants it. And you do have this massive migration problem. I mean, you see communities that are just completely transformed because they've let in so many people. They have a lot of open land. That's true. But then they decide to let in so many people, overwhelm. It's like those are the people that are going to be voting. Those are the people that are going to be making the decisions. A lot of these recent arrivals, are they going to have the same viewpoints as the people that were there before? Probably not in many cases. We've seen it before. We've seen it again. Usually people are going to, if these recent arrivals are ever going to vote conservative in America, it's been through assimilation. It's been through several generations, that sort of thing. You don't exactly have that, and it is transforming these communities just beyond what they were to begin with. And it's been an issue, but have the Canadians, did they have the balls to really capitalize on it? That's a whole nother thing, because Pierre, he has sent mixed messaging. It's definitely not something that, he's got to take it. He can't take your eye off the ball, because this is Trudeau versus, it's the same way it was before. And I told people this when it came down to Trump v. Harris. You can't get distracted. It's the same thing. It's the same policies. And Trump Trump really just hammered home that point down the stretch, and he won because of it. And I know that, in the debate, Pierre did, but it just feels like it's a little bit too little too late. It really does. And it's still early. There still are plenty of results we have not exactly counted yet, but I think we know the way these things typically go. It's not an American election. It's not like a special election. But Canada, if the third-party vote share is low, you're not winning as a conservative in most cases. And it's lower so far. Now, things can change because it's just the Maritimes. They're not always predictive. But if it's going to stay this low, that's not exactly good. And you see what's going on. Maybe you're going to flip a few net in the Maritimes. You got to keep that up in Quebec. You got to keep that up in Ontario. You got to keep that up across the entire nation if you're going to want to win. So American Nerd 1776 for 10 says, hot take, a liberal globalist government in Canada should work in Trump and America's favor, as they would be such a doormat if we could force them to do our bidding. At least that's how I see it. Yeah, look, I understand. I'm not going to sit here and whine about it. Pierre Poilievre, as we've been instructed to say correctly, he's somebody that I think would be better for the average Canadian. But as an American, you could make the case that the weak government is preferable for taking advantage of, for trade purposes, etc., if they have a stronger leader. But at the stage in the game, who really is the stronger leader? If you're going to really lose that late lead, 90-some% chance, all the way down to zero, you could blame Donald Trump, you could blame Trudeau dropping out, but that's still on you. You did that in your own country. You're blaming extraneous factors. You didn't navigate this issue properly. That should never have become an issue because you explain it to the average person. And it's like, okay, if somebody in like California, let's say Gavin Newsom was going to lose to a Republican until there was some national policy that the Republican distanced themselves from Trump on, even then it would still make more sense why that would happen in California, because that's still within America. This is within Canada. Pierre is, the party's not even the same color. Okay, I mean, like, if we're going to be completely honest, if the voters want to vote liberal despite Trump, despite the fact that I don't even think Trump cares who the leader is, probably, if anything, you're right, could want the liberals to win. I think it's short-sighted. I think it speaks volumes to how petty and childish the Canadian people truly are at large. Not all of them, but it would be a majority or close to a majority of them if this does continue. So we'll see what happens tonight, guys. But, I mean, the Canadians have a lot to be disappointed in themselves because of this, because it's the same exact thing. And I will say this, if Trudeau was in office and Trump was saying this stuff, it wasn't affecting the polling. Was it affecting the polling one bit? Because Trudeau was in office. He was somebody who, was this weak leader. And if anything, Trump saying all that stuff was helping Pierre. But now it's like, okay, he's out of the picture. And then you have a new leader, and his entire campaign is Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad. It's worked for him. It hasn't worked for Poilievre to kind of try to do that in the diet version. It never works when conservatives try to be the diet left in any way. That's a problem for him. It's been a problem for his campaign. Like I said, it would be better for the average Canadian if he won than if the Liberals won. Obviously, I understand that, but he does bear a lot of the blame. It reminds me a lot of like an Obama-Romney situation where you have somebody that's got a chance to win. Obviously, Romney, I don't think, was ever really the favorite, but he was gaining momentum and he threw it all away. His own laziness, he let Obama just completely mog him with Hurricane Sandy and the response and everything. He was nowhere to be found. It was a total disaster. The whole thing was a big mess. And he ended up losing by more than he probably even should have lost by, because, Obama, he was beatable to an extent. He was beatable. I'm not going to sit here and say that, Romney's somebody who could have beaten him, but it should have been closer if he did everything correctly. He didn't do everything correctly. And if there was a hypothetical strong candidate who would have effectively attacked Obama, Obama definitely could have lost. I'm not saying that Trump would have. I mean, he could have. Maybe he could have. I think he would have done better. But I think Trump waited until his time to run. But is there some hypothetical candidate that could have come along in 2012 and done a lot better than Mitt Romney? Absolutely. So we'll see what happens. But I think the Conservatives, if you look on Polymarket, for Canada, they are projecting that by the end of this year, they're going to have a new leader, because, they're going to look at this and they're going to say, hey, you lost. It's over if he does lose, because he hasn't lost yet. But, they're going to look at that and they're going to say, this is unacceptable. We see what's going on. Another thing about this is you have to look at the places the other parties won, because you have more votes coming in out of Quebec, and you see more and more of these ridings, they're flipping to the Liberals. Pierre might be doing better in them, but because of the third-party vote share, you're seeing more and more Liberals, and you have this generic Mark Carney as the leader. He's going to win their votes. He's going to win their votes. He's the same thing, but if that's not effective, if your message is not effective, I don't know what to tell you. What are you going to do? Blame Trump for it for one reason or another because you can't take accountability for your own mishaps? Then that's the way that's the way it's going to go. So they're winning in Winnipeg. These are definitely going to be areas, Winnipeg West, where the Conservatives are up big. They're definitely going to have to do better in Manitoba. If they can't win in a majority of ridings in Manitoba, it's over in Manitoba. But they're predicted to win a majority in Manitoba as it stands today, as it stands now. Ontario and Quebec, they're predicted to get absolutely shellacked, which is just downright embarrassing. So not particularly happy about it. I'm not particularly upset about it, but it's like it's just astounding to me that the Canadians are this dense to throw their country in the trash can because Donald Trump is evil. Donald Trump is mean. And what this could do, if you have more of this nonsense for the next 4 years, could you get a Wexit resurgence? Could you get, let's see how the Western provinces vote, because maybe you will see a split there. Maybe you will see Alberta. Maybe they're not going to want to join the U.S. I don't know if again, they're not U.S. conservatives necessarily. Even if we got Alberta and Saskatchewan, doesn't mean overnight they're going to be Republican areas. But what it does mean is, could you see some form of campaign to get this, like we've heard of Wexit, which is basically the Western provinces wanting to leave Canada? Could you see a resurgence of that? I think you should, because they're they are culturally very different areas. And you would actually you'd have a West Canada and you'd have an East Canada. West Canada would be a lot more tolerable, and probably we would have a much better relationship with them, which could help out with the oil. It could help out with all sorts of things. So I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know how feasible it is overnight, but over time, is it possible? It's possible. So we have votes in out of Ontario. Essex is voting for one very little bit out of an area near Windsor, area near Michigan. The Conservatives are leading there in parts of that part of Ontario. They're also leading in Alberta. They're leading in Manitoba. They're leading in Saskatchewan. All that is true, but again, what really matters are the majority. So far, the Liberals have been, they're leading 30-21, but they've been projected in 19 out of the 25 that have been projected. So we'll see what happens. But the Bloc Québécois so far, they're doing well in Quebec. They're doing well. Now, I don't know if that's going to be enough to guarantee them a majority of seats in Quebec, or even close to that, but where it stands right now on Polymarket, it's 74-26. So a little bit of a resurgence for Pierre, kind of a stabilization, but not by much. So we'll keep watching. We'll look at the super chats as well. We have a goal for the super chats. If we get 30, 10 and above, we will hit our goal. But as it stands now, we only have 4. So we have the Jaded Kriegsman saying Canada would never be a state. The provinces might apply. Yeah, I think a state would be ridiculous. I think there are benefits to us having Canada. A lot of them are economical more so than cultural. And over time, the way they would vote, the economic aspect would just be thrown out the window. I think it would benefit Canada more than it would benefit us. And it's like you have a lot of Canada. It's changing. You have a lot of foreigners that have entered. They do not share the same culture. It's not politically correct to say, but it is a correct observation that many people will make. And it's not the same Canada as it was before because of this uncontrolled. It makes our immigration system look like we have a moratorium by comparison what's going on up there. It's insane. You talk about the working class displacement. It's absolute insanity from what I've heard from many people. But Mick Siphon for 10 says, Ready Go, the vast majority of Canadians live in Quebec. And I know, is it a majority? I think it's close to that. You're right. Ontario is a big province. Quebec is a big province. I understand. I know a lot about Canada. Grew up probably about 30 minutes away. Didn't go very often, but right, actually north of Canada, believe it or not. Michigan, much of Michigan is north of parts of Ontario. But let's see. Eric CB912 says, I would only accept Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and British Columbia, make Vancouver part of Washington to keep. There's also the talk of a Cascadia nation, which would be, Western Washington, Oregon, and British Columbia. They could take Seattle. That's more of a fit for them than it is for us. But I say that in jest. We need to keep our manifest destiny, but I don't want to take over certain places for the sake of taking them over when you're going to have problems with just the fact that it's a different country. America was voting in this election. Pierre would win probably like 80% of the vote, but probably a good 60-some% of the vote. XJ Cherokee Bear says it will be like if Harris actually won. Well, the difference is that I guess in a way, Mark Carney may not be as insufferable as Kamala Harris is, maybe not as dim-witted and much of a joke, but at the end of the day, that's their problem, not our problem. Like I said, I feel bad for Canadians, but I think Canadians can understand my position, if they are fans of the show, which we have plenty, including Chris Evans sending a $14 Canadian super chat saying a conservative minority government would only last 2 to 3 years. They'd be outnumbered in the policy committees. It'd be a lose-lose. Well, it would probably be a lose-lose. Nate Thomas says, what's your take is more likely in 28, Red Virginia or New Jersey? I think New Jersey. I think Winsome Sears, her campaign is just not, there's no inspiration behind it. You don't have that Youngkin-style energy. And you also have the scandal with the lieutenant governor candidate, which, I mean, he's like, I don't know. He's like, it's like you have a Mark Robinson situation on steroids going on with him. He's got like, you know, we talk about the OnlyFans lady that ran on the Democrat side in 2023 for State House and lost a district that Biden won by double digits. And then this guy's got like, you know, a gay sex tape that's been leaked and all this stuff that they've been talking about, and it's just a big mess. Like, I don't know, they need to vet these people better. I don't know what's going on. I thought the Virginia GOP was becoming a little bit more competent, but from what I've seen, it's been the opposite lately. But again, that's their issue. That's their problem. I'd like for Virginia to have conservative leadership, but New Jersey, I think there's more potential. I don't think we necessarily win it, but I think there's more potential. Olivia Williams says, do you think we see Oklahoma 5th, South Carolina 1 repeats in 26? No, because you're not going to be able to win those districts as a Democrat. Like, I've covered this on Twitter where I said the most realistic, like, Democrat wave is them picking up 13, maybe 14 seats, which, again, we don't want that to happen. It wouldn't be good. But you're not going to be able to realistically have this 40-some seat wave they had in 2018, even if you have a bad economy now compared to a good economy then. Now, Trump needs to get it rolling. I think he can get it rolling. I think that you have a lot of people out there, and I'm not talking about the approval rating polls because I think a lot of them are inflated for the disapproval. I'm not saying he hasn't lost any support since taking office because it's just a natural honeymoon phase type of thing. But what you do have is you have a lot of people who will get antsy because, yeah, the economy still is not great for a lot of people. All that is true. The problem is that, Trump hasn't done anything about it in 3 months. He can't really do much about it in 3 months, and then they'll go place the blame on him. So it's kind of a mixed bag. He still has a higher approval rating in RCP than he had for almost every point of his first term. So you also have that going for him. We also need to make sure that we can boost turnout as well. We need to boost turnout in the midterms because I think turnout is going to matter a lot more than Trump's approval rating even. Biden had a really bad approval rating, but Democrats had really good turnout, and they ended up performing better than most people expected in the midterms. Obviously, they still lost the House. We wouldn't want to lose the House, but we now know where we can really spend money and where we can go from there in the House, so we got to make sure that it can happen. But Chief Officer Henry Wild says, use CBC map. We're using both. Olivia Williams says, what do you think about the Bible in classes in Oklahoma? Well, I think it should be taught in public schools anyways. I'm not saying that it has to be taught from a religious perspective, but I think it's a very important historical collection. Majority of students are obviously going to be of the Christian, different denominations for sure, but it's an important historical book. I think it should be taught. I think you could debate about how it should be taught, but should it be taught? Yeah, I think it should be taught. You know, we have the state-mandated secularism. It's not really, in my opinion, good for the nation, where every form of religion just gets demonized for the sake of, it's a form of religion. I don't think it needs to be taught from a religious lens, but should religion be taught in schools? Yeah. I mean, if you want to teach about other religions in schools, you should be able to do that too. I think it's a very, very historical type of thing that it's just good for people to understand the perspective of a majority of people in this country and what they believe. So that's the way it is. Now, Olivia Williams also says, Virginia scandal, we already kind of covered that. I think it's just a big mess. Is it real or is it not? It probably is real. I wouldn't be shocked if it isn't. But it's like, either way, you could just replace the candidate. I don't think he's like, this guy had a really big chance to win anyways. Eric CB912 says, went to Alberta 2 years ago. A lot of pro-life and F. Trudeau signs. They seem fairly conservative outside of Edmonton. Yeah, I mean, even Edmonton's going to be voting, maybe not all of Edmonton, but a good part of Edmonton is, it's just a very urban country. And urban areas tend to be more liberal for some reason. Now, maybe that will change in the U.S. a little bit. It has, but it's still the case. We did better in L.A. We did better in Chicago. All that's true, but at the same time, Democrats are still overwhelmingly winning those areas. And that's the way it goes. Urban areas tend to be more liberal, and conservatives fleeing the cities, it's kind of a conservative mindset thing. I think it, past a certain point, can be an unproductive thing. I understand why people would want to do it, but at the same time, that's where the cultural control is. If you want to maintain power, you're going to have to go where the power structures are. Otherwise, you're just going to cede that ground, and then you're going to complain about ceding that ground. Some people, they want to live in the rurals or even like a suburb, but it's like you got to be closer to where the energy is. I understand the appeal for remote living, especially the way things are, but it kind of just reinforces it. If you want to actually get involved in the effort to, turn the tides a little bit, you're going to have to get your hands a bit dirty. So I wish there was a shift map. I don't see a shift map whatsoever. I don't see a flip map. I do know that there are results here. So there are some results that are heavily conservative, very early returns in places liberals won, but then we're also seeing the opposite, and they're very early returns too. So I don't know if those are going to hold in places liberals won, but look at this. Not a single riding that voted third party is going conservative. That's not good. That the liberals are possibly going to walk away with a majority at the end of this. Conservatives will have more seats than they had before, but they're not going to have, liberals are going to have a majority government. That's not good. That's not good for them. And that's a big part of getting Trudeau out. That was the smartest thing the liberals did. You could say Trump said this. You could say, we could even talk about Poilievre. I think there's three main reasons why the liberals have surged. There's three main reasons. You can't look at it without talking about at least two of the three, because I see a lot of people that'll say just Trump this, Trump that. And you could say that, Trump's rhetoric contributed to the trade war as an issue, and it galvanized Canadians. I also think Poilievre is to blame for that too, because he failed to control the narrative. He couldn't control the narrative. And when he tried to attack Trump, it didn't really come off well. He was actually attacking Trump for a while, more than he was attacking the liberals, and it was not an effective tie-in. And maybe you could say that this guy's a new face, and it would be like if they replaced Joe Biden with, I don't know, Mark Kelly or somebody like that, who Obama wanted him to be replaced with instead of Kamala Harris, because Kamala Harris was not a very politically, not a very politically skilled person. She just wasn't. I mean, you could look at her races back in California back in the day, just not very good. But on top of that, it's like she was directly tied to Biden. This guy, he was like an advisor, but not like he wasn't direct, like the direct number two. So that's also galvanized liberals. And how has the NDP navigated this? Poorly. They've lost support. The Bloc Québécois, I mean, they're just localized to Quebec, but they're going to probably lose seats too. So, where's the effort to gain those voters from the Conservatives? What agenda do they have for the Québécois people, the Quebec nationalists, to protect their culture? Because that's a whole nother thing. These are more liberal nationalists, but they're nationalists, the Bloc Québécois, and they have Quebec-only concerns. What are the Conservatives going to do to kind of reach out to those people? I don't exactly see a big effort. I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm paying the closest possible attention to Canadian politics, but when you look at the results out of Quebec, you can deduce that. What is the Conservative outreach to these people? What is it? Because I don't really see it much on my end. But that's the way it is, guys. But you got a lot of votes left to count, but I think we know the way it's going to go. Not happy about it. But we're having a stream here. We're having a good time, and we're gonna watch the results pour in as the night goes on. So we can have this conversation. We could talk about America. You guys can get involved in the super chats. Like I said, we want to hit our goal. So if a yellow super chat or above goes towards the goal, we have 5 out of 30. We just got our 6th. So Johnny Heartdog is back for 10. Says, how's it going? I've been absent because I've been really sick, came down with the flu, then I got better and relapsed. Won't be chatting for a while. Maybe during the next stream going back to sleep. Well, I hope you get better. I assume by relapsed you mean with the flu, not with any sort of drugs, because that would not be good. But thanks for the super chat. Nate Thomas for 5 says, I know this is an unpopular opinion, but I think Ted Cruz should be the Senate Majority Leader since he's the most conservative. I don't think he's the most conservative senator. I think he might be in the upper half. I don't think he's the most conservative. He might be one of the more outspoken senators in terms of the personality that he has and the fact that he's ran for president. I don't think he's the most conservative. Hawley, Mike Lee, there's plenty of other options you could point to. American Nerd 1776 says, if the U.S. does somehow annex Canada, should we have Quebec as an independent puppet state, or will we have them as northern Louisiana? I don't think it's going to happen, but, like I said, I think independence for Quebec and the French part, because, look, they're a nation. They have their own identity, and I think that it's perfectly fine protecting that. It's perfectly fine. Quebec they can have some of the other French maritime provinces, whatever. That's what they can do. And then you have the western part of Canada, and that's a whole nother thing. And it is true, mass immigration has fundamentally changed Canada, probably is playing a role in the results that we see, because Canada 30 years ago was not the same country that it is right now, because you have all of these people that have just been pouring in under the guise of merit-based immigration. And it's just a complete and total different country right now. It is not what it was before. And it's not like these people are from a Western culture. They're not like coming in from France. They're not coming in from, the UK. A lot of these Canadians initially were coming in from those places. They're coming in from, India, certain parts of the Arab world as well. And it's not the same country as it was before. It really will change the dynamic. A lot of Chinese in Vancouver. Some of these people probably, they can assimilate. They can assimilate well. But some is not a majority. And when you have mass immigration, you're going to see a fundamental shift, especially because there's no incentive for these people to assimilate if they're going to be pouring in by the rates that they're pouring in. I mean, we saw the same problems in our country, because people will say, if you say this, well, what about the Italians in New York and in Chicago in the early 1900s? And there were problems. I mean, the mafia was a thing, and Italians are great people, and many of them have assimilated. But how they assimilated? We pulled the plug on immigration for the most part in the 1920s. We significantly lowered it. We significantly upped the standards, and you saw what happened. So there's nuance to it, and Canada. Where was the talk about a potential significant reduction? Because even Trudeau has talked about it in the past when it would be election time, when it would benefit him. But did the Conservatives make that a point down the stretch to even talk about? Donald Trump did, and it worked out. And so many people said he shouldn't have talked about it, but it worked out. It worked out and was a clear driving factor in his victory, especially, I would say including, but I think especially among the Hispanic population in Texas, Arizona, Nevada, parts of California. Imperial County, California, never went Republican before. Donald Trump won. It's like 80-some% Hispanic. It's incredible what happened this past election cycle. But it's a border county. Nate Thomas says, since Vance is most likely the 28 nominee, who's a better VP choice, Cruz or DeSantis? I'm Floridian and I prefer Cruz. I honestly don't think either is that preferable. And I'm not saying this because of the primary drama in either 2016 with Cruz or 2024 with Ron DeSantis, but I will tell you, watching them on the campaign trail in that respective time frame, they don't really have the ability to connect with voters. Cruz is not popular in Texas nearly as much as even Trump is. And you see DeSantis in Florida, he kind of exposed himself a little bit on the national stage. So I think Marco Rubio would be a much better option. I know some people still don't like Rubio. They don't trust him. He's done a great job as Secretary of State. I don't know. It could be somebody else. But in terms of the 2028 VP choice, I think we're a long way away. We got to get to 2026 first. XJ Cherokee Bear says, here's the twist. The other guy in the gay sex tape was Harry Sisson. Well, that would be something. That'd be on brand. That would be on brand. Nate Thomas has read Minnesota in 2028 or 2032. I don't think you're ever going to see it. I really don't. Maybe you could in a one-off, but it's like you talk about Canada. Canada is most synonymous with, like, if aliens saw Minneapolis and they like made it a country to just fill in the void above the United States. And that's what you would get. You would get Canada. You get nothing else other than Canada. So we could look at the results a little bit here. You see a lot of liberal holds in these ridings, and even like Windsor area flipping from conservative to liberal. That's not ideal for the conservatives. They're leading in a majority so far. Doesn't mean it's going to hold, but it's not exactly all that great. The NDP's collapse is really underrated in this because you'll have a lot of people placing a lot of blame everywhere. The NDP completely collapsed after Trudeau. They were polling at 20. All that support went to the Liberals. I mean, the Conservatives, they're actually doing better, and I know it's early, but they're doing better than they were polling, 39.4%. If you want to see how they were polling, they were polling, somewhere around, I guess you would say, the 40s. So you had a little bit of a late drop off. They're doing better than that, but not nearly good enough, and that's not where you want to be. And if you look at it now, he's at 14%. He's up in Yukon for some reason. I don't know why he's up in Yukon, but he's everywhere else not doing too hot, and that's just not, Canada. It's what we expected. I'm not thrilled. I'm not upset either. It's what we expected, but it's just like, you guys, seriously, Trump making jokes made you vote to destroy your country. If that's really what did it, they don't deserve their country because these are stupid people. I'm sorry. Not all Canadians, but over 50% as it stands right now. This is the same failed leadership in Canada. For how long have we seen it? And this is who they're voting for. Oh, because you changed the name. It's like, well, what did Obama say about the lipstick on the pig? He was, in theory, it's not a bad saying that he used. Because that's what happens. You put lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig. And I know he didn't invent it, but he did popularize it in politics. And that's basically what they did. They just switched out their candidate. Is this going to be a common theme? And should we be looking into this in the future too? It's like I said it after Mark Robinson's scandal dropped, and then a bunch of people on my own side started attacking me saying, no, he needs to fight. And it's like, the left doesn't do this. If they see somebody they know is going to get their ass kicked, they'll just yank him out of the race. They did it with Biden. They did it with Trudeau, but we can't do it when we have a candidate who is obviously got a scandal that was clearly real if you looked at it through every lens of objectivity. And now he could have come out and admitted it and got in front of it and it would have stopped the bleeding. But the way he handled it wasn't great. The Conservatives are to blame because they were the ones who sat on that story throughout the primary. They should have released it. They didn't release it. So there's a lot of blame to go around, but it's like, I don't want to be lectured by people about political strategy when this guy goes out there and loses by 15 points. Guy who I supported for a while until all this stuff surfaced, and it's like, this is a problem. This is a problem. Like, I would have voted for him if I lived in North Carolina, but I could see why an independent voter wouldn't want to touch the guy. I could see it. But as for Minnesota, as the super chatter said, it's like Minnesota's it's like a lot like Canada because you have that urban area. It controls the state's population because there's not a lot of people in the rural areas. It's not like Milwaukee with Wisconsin. It's not like Michigan. You have a big, like 50% plus of the population is in that area. It's more synonymous with Illinois. Now, Illinois is moving right because there's a lot of, minority voters that have been voting more Democrat, in these older generations. Younger generations they're a little bit like the Hispanic voters moving to the right, even among certain young black voters moving to the right. That's going to push Illinois to the right. Just a little shift goes a long way. Minnesota, this is like all white. And these are like white atheist, secular liberals that are in Minneapolis. They're very far left. You're not reaching a lot of these people. So maybe you can say we'll do a little bit better among working class voters. Fine, but I think that it's going to take a really good year or a very high third party for Republicans to even come close in Minnesota. I mean, this past election cycle, they lost by, 4 to 5 points. I don't know if they're going to get any closer than that in the future, just based on the way these things go. But you have more ridings filled in. We'll refresh, and the Liberals are up 50-40, and the third-party vote share 10%, roughly as expected. PPC's at 0.8. They're not affecting really any riding results. This isn't last cycle in Canada. So Chopper Rocker says Canada is not the 51st state, more like an EU-style economy. That would work better. I mean, a good trade deal could kind of suffice as such. So we'll see how Trump works with, presumably, it's probably going to be, I mean, we could refresh Polymarket, see what they're saying at 12%. Oh, that's brutal. So probably going to be even more likely now it's going to be Carney than it was before. But we'll see how Trump can work with him, get a trade deal done. I think it would be beneficial that we're able to do it. Daniel Krieger for 10 says, hey, Rep, would it be weird if I said that I'm shocked it's much closer than expected? I thought liberals were going to destroy the conservatives. I didn't think that. I mean, it's going to look a lot like, in my opinion, the last election cycle, maybe even worse, because of the fact that you don't have these other, like if you look at the seats that the other parties are leading in, maybe there's going to be some Bloc Québécois seats that go, but the NDP, they got like 20, 30 seats. They usually get around there. They're at 1 right now. Now, maybe that changes and goes up when you get certain parts of Vancouver in, certain parts of these cities in the West where they do better, but I don't think it's going to quite cut it. Maybe you could say that some of the votes splitting or more of their votes going liberal could even get the conservatives a seat or two based off that, but it's not going to be enough in my opinion. I think you're looking at a liberal, possibly even liberal majority government. Maybe it's closer than expected. Maybe the conservatives get more seats than expected originally, but it's not going to be exactly where you'd want it to be if you're a conservative in Canada. Right now, they're saying it's going to be 175. That is more than enough for a majority for the Liberals. So that's a big, big shift from what a lot of people anticipated, because a lot of people were saying you'd have an overwhelming conservative majority. Not anymore. Not anymore. It is gone. And that is brutal for Canada. So, you know, Alberta, I'm telling you, Alberta, Saskatchewan, you gotta have these referendums eventually, because you're gonna have to talk about Wexit once again. Mick Siphon for 10 says, any Americans out there willing to adopt a middle-aged Canadian professional working for a Fortune 100 company? I'm willing to waive you of any responsibility to support me. See, well, you better hope the gold card stuff goes through, because, you know, I mean, maybe not given how you described in terms of well, Fortune 100 it depends on how high up you were, I guess, but if the gold card stuff goes through, you could see a lot of wealthy Canadian Albertans start to buy citizenship, which again, I think a lot of people have a lot of mixed feelings on that. Personally, I think that it would be preferable if we lowered other immigration, assuming that you'd have people paying, you know, extra taxes, and you'd have guardrails in place to prevent certain investors for just taking advantage. You know, we talk about the economic zone quite a bit, but I'd rather have people that are that invested to the point where they would basically put a good chunk of their fortune on the line to become citizens. It would just depend on how it gets done. So, you know, the whole gold card thing, I don't think it's that popular. Even among Republicans in Congress, it's not even that popular. So, let's see. Brad Mann says, boomers have completely destroyed Canada. Glad I immigrated down to Buffalo when I did. It truly breaks my heart, though. Well, welcome. See, if you understand it, this is the type of immigrant, if we're going to take in people that should be prioritized, should be the conservative Albertan who's going to just be like a one-to-one transfer, you know, according to just basic metrics. Otherwise, you're going to have people that you're going to be pouring in. They're going to be voting, you know, 70-30 Democrat. That's being generous to our side. There's all these other issues, and the sheer volume that we've let in is just downright insane, and we've been lied to by the system to say that this is necessary for our economy and our economic strength. Folks, we had the golden age in the 1950s of our economy when we didn't have really any migration. So clearly there's something else to it. Now, at least you had a system in place where you had people that wanted to have kids. They were having kids. You could maintain the population pyramid. We're not doing that now. But even with mass migration, we're not doing it now. So what exactly, like what do you think is more likely to, which system do you think is more likely to cause Americans to prosper? It's a good question. So let's see, we have Nate Thomas saying, Joy Reid hilariously said this morning that Rome fell due to lack of diversity. If memory serves correctly, it is the reason Rome, well, it was too big. And you had too many different cultures that were living under the same ruler, and it did play a role in its demise. The fact that it was just too big, it was an empire, it couldn't sustain itself. And there's many reasons why people can point to and say Rome fell. That is not one of them. Whether you want to say the sole cause was said diversity or not is besides the point. The main point is Joy Reid's a dumbass, and I thought she got fired. Is she? Well, I guess she does her own thing now. John Waffle H2P for 5 says, it's pathetic that these people vote on comments Trump made. These people are so petty. Well, the entire identity of Canada, especially now, because they have less of an identity, given the mass immigration, has been to, we're going to spite everything that the U.S. does. Now that Trump is in there, we hate Trump because he's not a conventional leader who's going to let us walk all over the United States. We're going to boo the national anthem. We're going to vote for the candidate that America probably wouldn't vote for in this two-way race, despite the fact that Pierre Poilievre is somebody who is not really pro-Trump. He's not somebody that is said anything nice about Donald Trump, to my knowledge. I don't even know if he might have congratulated him when he won the election, but I'm pretty sure Trudeau did the same thing. Didn't Trudeau he went down to Mar-a-Lago? That was kind of the end of his presidency because of how weak he looked. So, it's just one of those things where Canadians, it's astounding to me that they're this dense, that this is how they base their political identity on it, but they just do. I can't control that. I'm sorry, I can't. But it is what it is. I gotta have a water break for a second. Nate Thomas says Trump should completely ignore these judges who keep striking down his executive orders. It's blatantly unconstitutional for them as they cannot overrule the executive branch, separate but equal. Well, I mean, judicial review is not in the Constitution. And you have many people who believe that it is, but it's actually not. And when it comes down to this, you have precedents for it. Many presidents over the years in history have ignored judicial review in many different instances. Some of the greatest presidents, according to many people, like Abraham Lincoln, FDR. I'm not a fan of FDR, but many people view him to be consequential and great. Andrew Jackson, another divisive president in terms of how people view him, but still somebody who is very consequential. You have plenty of examples. And when you have this invasion at our southern border, this whole principles of law and justice, they're going to have to be, the rules are going to have to be, kind of, and the precedents as well, they're going to have to be bent. It's not even broken. It's not even in the Constitution, but they're going to have to be bent somewhat, because what you're doing is you're allowing a few rogue activists to prevent the president from enacting his agenda that is A, beneficial to the American people, and B, that the American people voted on. And we could have a debate and we could have a discussion about things like, the rollout of tariffs or some of these things. We can't debate anymore on an issue like the border when you have 10 million people pouring into the country illegally, breaking the law, and then you say, no, we're going to champion these judges who harbor them in their basements as heroes, and it's fascism if Donald Trump arrests them for, upholding it. They're breaking the law. These are the people that are the left's heroes that they're defending, while at the same time, they're coming out and they're saying that Donald Trump is the evil man because he's happening to, think about alternative methods to enact his wildly popular agenda that he was elected to implement. That's what it comes down to. So you have this immigration crisis and you have the left, which orchestrated it, facilitated it. They pretended during election season they didn't. And now that Trump won, he's in there, he's trying to reverse it. What are they trying to do? They're just going out there and they're obstructing him in any possible way because, like I said, there's no other explanation for it other than these people hate our country. They should move to Canada. They would love it there. I mean, look what's going on. They should move there. Instead, they're here. They're causing chaos for us. Not exactly all that great for us, but you're seeing this, and there's conservatives that are leading certain parts of Nova Scotia. I didn't know they did that well in the Maritimes, but it's not nearly enough. But if you look at who's leading so far, 108 to 79, Liberals are in the lead, and it's like crazy to see. I don't think that's going to hold. You would think it wouldn't hold. Rural Saskatchewan voting Liberal, but I will tell you, like, Canada is strange. Canada is weird in terms of their politics. And by the way, for those who don't know, red is not conservative. This is not like America. Blue is the Conservative Party. Red is the Liberal Party. Most countries in the world do that. We are the opposite for some reason. In the 90s, we didn't really have set colors, but ever since 2000, everywhere except U.S. Elections Atlas, pretty much, the blue has referred to the Democrats and the red has been the Republican color. But in Canada, they still do it the way most other countries do it. Why? I mean, I think the why would be more on us, but we're different. We do it our way. They do it their way. And now Poilievre is at 3%. But for some reason, he's favored in Yukon. I don't think, are there any votes in Yukon? No, I think it's strange. Conservative candidate's name is Ryan Leaf, no relation to infamous NFL draft bust Ryan Leaf. He also has a name that fits well for Canada. Maybe that's where the position of strength is going to be. Not spelled the way of their flag, but we'll see. They haven't made very many calls on the New York Times, but we understand the way these things are going to go. Our Conservatives, they're leading one seat, and it's only 2% that went third party in 2021, and that is crucial because the Liberals are winning about half of these seats. That's crucial for their majority. So, again, Liberals haven't flipped, to my knowledge. They're probably going to flip a couple because they're up 9%. With 85% reporting in this Nova Scotia riding, they're probably going to flip that. So it is true Conservatives have flipped a couple seats that the Liberals have held, but they're also losing some seats that they won. And again, a lot of this does stem from the third-party shift from the NDP directly to the Liberals, because what that is going to do is just going to raise their percentage in every single possible district. And what is that going to do? That's driving up their popular vote. It's driving up their seat totals. It's going to presumably get a lot worse for Canada if this happens and you have the same policies, which you will. I mean, it is brutal. Black Eagle Politics for $13.50 says, yo, Red, you keep spitting real with these lame stay capping. We got you, bro. You're a real one. Stay pushing, stay strong. We riding with you no matter what. Much respect. Thank you, Black Eagle Politics. I appreciate it. John Waffle, H2P, says, I disagree with the gold card. We need to bring back the jobs and train our own people. I know, I get that, but I'm saying if you have some people that want to invest and create jobs for our people, that's a good thing, I would imagine. But like I said, I get both arguments. I get both sides. I think you'd have to be very careful about how you do it. But Sam Madsen says Minnesota will get closer as the old voters die off. Senior population in the upper Midwest is very left-leaning, even in some rurals. Yeah, I think in the rurals, it's partially why the rurals are going to get redder. You have some people that are just stubborn. Older people typically are not going to switch their votes. You even see it in every minority community, because the older black voters, it's like 97% Democrat, but then Donald Trump among black men under 30 is winning close to, he's winning over a quarter of them. So, you do have this split between the older groups, which have ties to historical events, why they vote Democrat. Maybe in the white upper Midwest, it's because the Democrats were, the party of JFK, and maybe they just liked LBJ for some reason, and Bill Clinton, and they just vote a certain way, and they buy all the boomer resist lib slop about Trump and Russia or whatever. They just eat it up. Obviously, Trump has made massive gains in those areas, even among some former Democrats. Not trying to take away from that, but at the same time, a lot of these boomers are just stuck in their ways on the Democrat side, and older voters typically are. So I don't think that we're going to see massive shifts among the older generation, but younger generations, it's possible. I mean, especially if you're getting into politics, some of these kids, they'll be like, they're in like high school, they switch their ideology every week. You want to talk about ideological fluidity in the younger generations, that's a whole nother topic. But American Nerd 1776 for 10 says, if Thomas Jefferson had supported a national standing army, then we would have conquered Canada in the War of 1812. Wouldn't have to deal with this dumbass country that has a Reddit. Yeah, they're a Reddit country. I've said that before. It's like if Reddit users formed a country, it's like that they have that Reddit mindset. You're not going to elect a conservative in general. Like even when Polyev was up in the polls, I think he peaked. I don't think he hit 50% in a single poll. He did not. Not a single poll where he hit 50%. So you can do the math on that one. If you're going to win as a conservative, you need the Liberals to be fractured. Even as a Canadian conservative, even when Harper was winning, he wasn't getting 50%. You could win a majority of seats. You could win a plurality of the popular vote, as conservatives actually have done the past couple elections. We hear about it when Trump beat Hillary. Oh, no, it has to go. It's undemocratic. The liberals in Canada never talked about it. Although, to be fair, if you allocated the third-party vote share, the Liberals probably would have won by more. But now it's kind of a little bit of a different ball game. So that's kind of playing a major role in what's going on tonight. The video maker 2341 says, just joined. What is going on with the Canadian elections? Well, it's what we've kind of expected. The Liberals are really just running away with this thing. Polymarket 99-1. That's brutal. So, I mean, there you go. So it was 50-50 in the betting markets as some of the first results reported. And then after more results came in, I mean, to be fair, it started off 79-21, but then the betting markets kind of came in and were about to converge, and then they split again. So that's the way these things are just going. Conservatives, it's more of a question of how many seats are they able to get, more so than anything else. So they are winning many ridings across the nation. That is true, but is it remotely enough? No, they're getting completely just decimated in Quebec. Liberals are gaining seats in Quebec. Conservatives are not really picking up very many liberal seats, if at all. In fact, liberals are picking up some conservative seats, mainly because the third-party vote share has gone down significantly. Now, to be fair, the People's Party's gone down, but they were at 4%. The NDP, last cycle, they were in around the 20% range. Now they're down below 5%. That is not where you'd want it to be as a conservative. You need the NDP to be at least at 10% if you want a fighting chance at victory, maybe a little bit more than that. But instead, we're seeing what's going on here. It's unfortunate for Canada. It truly is. Like I said, I don't have a dog in this fight necessarily as an American. I would prefer that Canada would elect Pierre Polyev, but I'm not somebody that's going to sit here and feel super strong about it. But it's expected. It's just astoundingly disappointing that there's so many Canadians out there that vote liberal to spite America, to spite Trump. They don't even care. It's like they care more about spiting America than their entire country, because that's what their entire country's identity has really become based around, especially in recent years with all this, mass migration. But even before that, to be fair, it's largely just circled around spiting the United States. It has. That's what it's become. It's unfortunate, but this is the way these people operate. It's very similar to the liberal identity of every single policy position they take is despite Trump. The left was in favor of tariffs and protectionism, and now they're doing a 180. They're the most pro-free trade people you could ever find in existence. You've got them switching positions on a dime because Donald Trump throws them for a loop. It's just how these things go. But Canada, that's kind of how they are with the United States as a whole. So John Waffle says, how come Alaska is traditionally conservative, but right across the border in Yukon, it's a liberal mess? Alaska is closer to these people than the rest of the United States. Well, it's a different environment for sure. I mean, Yukon territory, we could look into Yukon. I've been there a long time ago, very briefly, but Yukon, again, there's only 47,000 people there. And you talk about the rural Alaska. Rural Alaska is not that conservative. It's changed, but I mean, in Canada, the Aboriginal population, the First Nations population, it's much higher. You're talking about 30-some% in Yukon territory. That's going to drive it a lot. I mean, there's a lot of support for the NDP because the NDP is got a big stranglehold on those communities. Now, it is true Trump made noticeable gains with Native American voters, American Indians, whatever you prefer, in Alaska, across the nation, Arizona, the Dakotas, New Mexico, you name it. But it doesn't always translate to Canadian politics as we see. So it is what it is. But it's a different country, a different culture all around. It's just not, you can't compare them. They're similar in location, but so is Ontario and Michigan. So is Manitoba, which is voted far left, and rural Minnesota. It's unfortunate that's the way it is for Canada, but that's just the way it is. So either way, we have another super chat. The video maker 2341 says, those who thought Pierre had the race in the bag a few months ago are looking real stupid now. I told people this race isn't over until, well, it's not. Yeah, exactly. But I will say that with Trudeau in the mix, he did have it in the bag. He would have walked away easily. That's not to say that they couldn't have taken him out as they did. And maybe they learned from the United States about how you can shake up the election. They made Trump an issue. The conservatives tried to also do the same thing, but if you're not first to the punch, it doesn't matter. And the liberals were able to, just by getting Trudeau out of the mix, single-handedly cripple the support of the NDP, certain parts of the Bloc Québécois, the Greens, many other possible minor parties in the mix. And what that was able to do was it was able to give the conservatives a massive, massive blow. And what that did was it caused the liberals to surge. It caused them to post a generational victory, at least in the popular vote so far. Obviously, a lot of Alberta left the count, a lot of British Columbia, but they have called the election for the liberals. Now, is it a majority or a plurality? I think it will end up being a majority. We can look on Polymarket for a little bit of clarification here for what they've called it as, but let's see. Yep, now it's almost certainly a liberal majority. Wow, that is brutal. But a liberal majority in the nation of Canada. Now, all of these provinces, British Columbia, a majority is going to go for the Liberals now. Alberta, Conservatives appear to be on track for what looks to be all 37 there. Probably 13 or all 14 in Saskatchewan. Manitoba, probably a majority in Manitoba, which they did pick off from last time. But these other places, no, they're not exactly doing all that well. So they're going to end up with probably, I would have to wager, more seats than last time, 132. But the NDP and their collapse is definitely something that not a lot of people will talk about, but it's the underrated factor, because as a conservative, you want to talk about the popular vote. They got, 34% last time around, and they were able to win the popular vote, but lose big time. But now they're getting like 40, a little bit more than 40% in the popular vote, and they're not exactly winning. They're not exactly closing the way they need to. So we're getting some results in out of certain parts of British Columbia. The Liberals are up in the Northwest Territories, which I don't believe they won last time. They're losing in Nunavut or Nunavut or however you pronounce it, but they're possibly going to win there. They're favored in the betting odds. Let's refresh. Yeah, they're still favored, but 98-2. That is brutal. That is brutal for the Conservatives in Canada. It just is what it is. But Ben Klassen, for 20 Canadians, says, I live in a rural part of Ontario that always votes Conservative. Frustrating to see what our country has become. If the Liberals win, I'll be moving out west to Alberta with many other Conservatives pushing for independence or the 51st state. Well, you could just start packing your bags now, because I don't think there's a shot for Pierre. I think it's going to be a majority Liberal government as things stand now. If you want to go back to 2021 and look at the results there, they were at 160. They were not quite to a majority. So the Conservatives are going to gain seats, but they're not gaining enough. The Liberals are gaining a lot more, and that's not exactly where you want to be right now. So again, 2 straight popular vote losses for Justin Trudeau, but the first Liberal majority of seats, a majority coalition they'll have since 2015, which was Trudeau's, I believe, first election where he went out there and he won 184 seats, almost 40% of the popular vote. Now, they're cracking 50. So now you get a 2-party system virtually in Canada, ironically enough, because you're getting 92% of the population behind one of the 2 major parties, when it was only like in the 60s or 70s the past couple of elections. But now it's like that's only going to benefit the Liberals. The Conservatives have only gained 6%. Liberals have gained 20. And we understand where that's going to, where that leverage is going at the end of the day, and it's just going to pad their majority, whereas the Conservatives are just left in the full minority to govern. They don't even have any say to kind of be those guardrails, which they didn't really have much before, but now they're not even contending for a minority government. They're heading straight for political extinction. And what are they going to do? They're probably going to end up caving even more for 1% of the vote. I mean, to be fair, what exactly are you going to do in Canada at this stage in the game? Maybe find an agenda that can appeal to the Quebecois. You could win some of those voters, win some of those ridings. We don't know when the next election is going to be, but if you're not in a minority government, I mean, I hate to break it to you, but you're not going to have an election till 2029 probably, because there's no reason to call one. It's not like you're going to have a 2021 election with Trudeau, even though he was, clearly going to win that and the Conservative was weak. Now you get someone who's a little bit better, still not great, probably would have beaten Trudeau easily, but now that he's not the leader, now that the Liberals did something smart and they subbed out their leader, it's how it works. And how are you handling it down the stretch? They're out there playing hockey, you're playing curling with your messaging. You're not going to win. You're not going to beat them at that. You're not going to beat them at their own game if you're not willing to play it in any capacity. Even if you are trying to play it, you're not playing it correctly. So it just comes off different. So let's see. We have Crunchkey says, let's trade Washington State for Alberta. It'd be a worthy trade, in my opinion. But, as somebody who takes pride in the fact that we fought many wars in the 1800s, conquered this nation from sea to the shining sea, and we're able to just give that away because these places have become just overrun with Liberals. I don't know if that's something I'd want to do, but I get the sentiment. Alberta, Saskatchewan, some of these places that are more in line with America culturally than Canada, you could maybe make the case that maybe they should join, or at least they should become their own country separate from Eastern Canada, because that's another thing. Because Eastern Canada is fundamentally, controlling these places where they just don't exactly have the same worldview that they have, and you know, it's they've got a different dynamic up there. So Wexit, you could talk about this being a positive thing in the long run for places like Alberta if you start to see more of a Wexit resurgence, which is the movement for certain provinces in Western Canada to kind of split from Trudeau, split from the Liberal government. But are you even going to see that? Because what's British Columbia going to be doing? What are even the margins in some of these places like Alberta? Well, I mean, so far some of these conservative ridings are coming in, but I mean, folks, it's not looking too good for Canada. I hate to say it for the Canadians in the audience, it's not looking too good. But yeah, Tom Otto for 10 says Liberal Canadians are so gullible they think Carney will stand up to Orange Man after the election when he lies to get elected. He'll get on his knees to keep the U.S. happy on trade. Well, you know, I said this before, and I'll say it again. You could make the case that this benefits the United States because of everything you just said. Now, we'll see. Like I said, Canada, you can make the case that Trump negotiating with either leader, Trump can negotiate with either leader. Which leader would you rather have him negotiating with? Maybe it's the weaker Liberal. You could make the case. You could make the case that Poilievre is kind of weak too, given how he completely just dropped the ball down the stretch. But what can you even do when so much of your liberal country unifies behind the Liberal Party? Because if that happens, you know, it's good luck winning in general. Good luck winning in general, because you're going to really struggle when you have to galvanize half the country. Even at his peak, he never polled at 50. He didn't have a generational collapse. He was barely polling above the percent that he got now. It was more of a generational rise for the Liberals from 20% to 50% than it was a collapse of the Conservatives from, 43% to 40%. So a lot of people probably were just voting Conservative because they didn't like Trudeau, and now they're dumb enough to think it's going to be any different. It's not. I mean, this guy, he's more generic. He's less defined. They see that as something beneficial. That's what they tried to do with Biden, except they got stuck with Kamala, and it didn't exactly work out. It didn't work out too well. But American elections are a little bit different than Canadian elections. Their politics are different. The Videomaker 2341 says, your thoughts on Canadian territories in general, Yukon, Northwestern, and Nunavut? Well, I mean, they're very liberal. But again, it's like I don't have a thought about them. I know they don't really have much voting power, which, I mean, they really shouldn't. There's not very many people that live there. But I don't even know the difference between how they're really governed all that much, other than the fact, I mean, they're small places. I mean, you add them all up together, there's 70, 80, 90,000 people, and there's 30-some million across Canada. I mean, they have fair representation. 3 out of the 300 whatever seats, I think it's more than fair. So Rob B says Trump should just take Alberta. Canada's corrupt. Well, I don't know if he's going to do that, but a lot of some Albertans would like it. I mean, I think Trump's popularity in Alberta kind of gets overstated in some of these spheres, but you know, I think it is true. Alberta, I think it's very possible you could see a split within our lifetimes of some of these provinces in Western Canada from some of these provinces in Eastern Canada. But I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. Big Hoss 81 says Canada hasn't won a Stanley Cup in 33 years. Sad. Well, you know, it's funny. The last time a Canadian team won a Stanley Cup was further away than the last time an American Canadian Football League team, which those did exist for a couple of years. One of them won a Grey Cup, which is their title, but the Stanley Cup hasn't been won since before that. So America has won a Grey Cup more recently than a Canadian team has won the Stanley Cup. That's pretty funny to me. Hopefully that streak continues, because they don't deserve anything, especially after tonight. But even so, they still don't. I mean, the fact of the matter is that there's so many Canadians. And, of course, there's going to be good Canadians. I'm not trying to take away from that. We have plenty in chat, but there's just so many people that are just willing to throw away their country for the sake of what? For the sake of what? I don't even know. It's embarrassing. If I was a Canadian, I would be embarrassed. I would be embarrassed. As an American, it's kind of funny. As a Canadian, I would feel embarrassed. John Waffle H2 pieces need to build a wall across the Canadian border. Well, I mean, we should have a border, a physical barrier. Maybe not as big of a wall as we need with Mexico, but we should secure the border. Because you will have people, and Canada's immigration policy is so weak, they'll have people go to Canada and then run across the border in the north. And there have been plenty of drugs that have come over that way. Not as much as the other way around, but plenty of them. And it's a problem. So in regards to Canada and what's going on up there, yeah, there should be some border. I mean, we have a water border for much of the eastern part, but the western part, there should be like a fence. It doesn't have to be like this massive wall. But there should be something. I know Scott Walker said that in the 2015 debates, and then that was like people didn't take him seriously after he said that. But there is something to the fact that, yeah, you should have a well-guarded border in general. It's just a statement that we're a sovereign nation. You can have good relations with Canada, good relations with Mexico. It's a lot harder with Mexico because they are controlled by the cartels, and that's not a good thing. But regardless, Canada it's a mess. It's a mess up there. So, yep, it is what it is. So it could happen. It could help us. We'll see. But if we have any more super chats, feel free to send them in. We've had 13 out of the goal of 30. So we'll keep monitoring it. But let's check. We'll check the CBC. And it is not loading. It is broken. Okay. Well, then we're not going to check it because it's broken, but we'll see. Okay, 7 conservative seats were called in Saskatchewan, so technically the liberal numbers dipped because more of Quebec has come in, which has definitely helped the Bloc Québécois. So the popular vote has shrunk, but still. Walrus Hunter for 20. So this is a former Canadian who moved to the U.S. in 2007 and naturalized a few years ago. I can say that Canada's culture comes from its loyalist roots, the weak and pacifist types who wanted to keep the stability of the crown. That might be part of it. They didn't really disassociate until, 1982? Like, I know they've been sovereign since, the 1800s. Technically, they still have power over Canada if they really wanted to use it. There wouldn't be really a reason for the crown to do it, but that is true. You have people, and this is the problem, is weakness, because you have so many people in positions of power, and this is why the far left has risen in power over the past 10, 15 years in the culture. It's why cancel culture has become a thing, is because people are not willing to stand up to annoying, whiny losers and lunatics. Because when you let these people control you, because you're like, I'll get them off my back, you see what happens. That's what this all really stems from. It's true. In so many areas, it's allowed this culture of weakness to transpire in the United States. And it's about time we need to bring back strength. We don't need weakness. We see where weakness gets us. Just put your foot down and say no for once in your life. They'll get tired eventually, but no. We have to let the craziest people, and this is what happened in the Democrats in their party, ceding all this ground to these crazy people, which in turn you could say has helped the Republicans in certain instances. But it's like, you gotta do something. You have the weakest people. They whine until they get what they want, and people just give them what they want. I don't know. It's incredible. But it's a big reason why we've gone downhill. It's because so many people are just unwilling to, The Videomaker 2341 says, Carney's a globalist, well-spoken white man continuing Canadian demographic transformation, grew up in peaceful Canada, future gen won't. Well, we'll see what happens. It is definitely not the same nation. It's going to be like majority Indian if this keeps up. You're telling, and so many people will say, you can't say it's politically incorrect, but it's like, folks, it's true. You're not going to be the same country if you import another country. They have a lot of land, but they're only 30 million people. If you're importing nearly as many people as the U.S. takes in per year, you're not going to be the same country. I mean, the U.S. has, you could talk about the United States and how we've transformed in certain areas. What they're experiencing is that on just steroids, massive steroids. And it's not going to be the same nation. People that think that are naive. I mean, especially when you're taking in that many people. This isn't like we're taking in 20,000 people a year and they're well vetted and it's strict assimilation, X, Y, and Z. No, you're taking in the entire subcontinent of India into Canada in a very short time frame. The entire working class in certain places is almost completely just, even in rural parts of Canada, it's just completely transformed. It has. What's the reason for that exactly? What is the reason? Never get the answer for that one. Obviously, I think that we know that it does stem from the fact that it benefits the elite class. It benefits them, cheap labor, you name it. But just the fact that they're doing this themselves is just very, 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 very strange. Why any nation would want to do that to themselves. No other third world country is doing that, by the way. No, I don't see a single third world nation that does that. It's only us. We have to do it, the West. So I don't know. American Nerd 1776's thoughts on the tensions happening between India and Pakistan. I can't help but worry because of the fact that if war happens, we might see nukes. I don't know what's going on there. They've always been at war. It's kind of been like the Indian version of the whole like Gaza conflict, where it's always been going on. There's always been high tension. Certain events kind of can make it more of an issue at certain times, for sure, as we saw a couple years back there. But India and Pakistan, I don't know. Hopefully we don't see nuclear war between India and Pakistan. That would not be good. I don't know what we're expected to do here in this situation. But Walrus Hunter said, I'd say liberal pro-immigration is a net loss for the U.S. as it now becomes another porous border we have to defend against. I mean, are you talking about the Canadian liberals taking... I mean, it's not going to change on that front. The Videomaker 2341 says, last visited Canada 2017. Can't imagine it now. Yeah, I mean, definitely it's a mess. And these election results are indicative of that. And I just don't understand it. Common sense and reality have just dissipated from the political sphere. But Canada is a prime example of that. Wouldn't expect anything different. American Nerd 1776 says, whatever happened to the Canada that did lots of crazy things during World War I that the Geneva Convention says are bad? That was the cool. Canada has transformed significantly since then. It's very more liberal now than it was back in 100 some years ago. So I don't know what went down there, but definitely it's not entirely the same nation as it was. I mean, we're not, but they're definitely not. And they're more liberal than ever. They're more overrun with mass migration than ever. It's kind of absurd what's going on up there. They're just allowing it. We have weak leadership. Conservatives have taken the lead in seats called. It's not going to stand. But they have taken the lead in seats called, as they've called more seats in Alberta, Saskatchewan, a couple in Newfoundland. But, I mean, either way. So apparently they track the party leaders. Could Jagmeet Singh even lose his seat? Is that possible? Well, we'll even watch that, because it does seem as if you are seeing this massive shift. So conservatives have won some of these third-party seats, but not nearly enough They're winning in some Liberal seats from last time, but Liberals are also winning in some Conservative seats. So it's like, this is not exactly where you'd want to be as a Conservative in Canada. It's true that you're going to have a net gain, but by how much? That's the other question. So, yeah, I mean, it's more expected there than it was here. Because here it's like, okay, this election's an IQ test of America. If you look at the past 4 years and you choose to run with another 4 years of it, you'd have to be out of your mind. Canada, oh man. Now take 4 years, 10 years. And look where they're at. 10 years, and they're choosing to go down the same pathway after 10 years of failed, unpopular leadership because Orange Man might be mean. And, obviously Trudeau's not there. So it's clearly we'll have to vote for the other Liberal guy now. Either way you want to look at it. And if you're Pierre Poilievre, you did drop the ball because you had a 99% chance to win. You could have found a way, and you didn't try to find an effective way. You knew what was going. You should have been able to know what was going to happen at that stage in the game, and actually tried to go out and see what you could do to win. Pick off voters that might have voted for the Bloc Québécois. Give them a reason to vote for you. You didn't do it. Effectively attacked the Liberal more effectively than he did in the tying into Trudeau. I saw some of it. I didn't see enough of it. The whole Trump thing, I mean, it's hard to navigate. He's never been pro-Trump. You could say that shouldn't even affect him, but like this whole you're wasting time trying to explain that to people. People either see it or they don't. And the fact is, he wasted a hell of a lot of time explaining it to still get shellacked and still probably choose to blame Donald Trump for that too, because a lot of these people transcends national boundaries. They're going to blame Donald Trump for everything. So, we talk about the Canadian, you even read the New York Times, threats to Canadian sovereignty. Why? Because he's saying it's the 51st state. Something on social media, he says something people have said over the years. It's like people actually are taking that seriously is somewhat amusing. But again, Poilievre's campaign was, we're not going to be the 51st state. So, like, how do you even justify that? Oh, because Trump is a vaguely conservative, and so is this guy. We have to vote for the Liberal now. What is this? I think it's an easy thing to blame Trump. Is it really Trump to blame? I think it's numerous factors, but I think the number one thing is, when you got Trudeau out of there, this was a different race. Because, I mean, even if Trudeau was in there, and Trudeau was in there when Trump was saying some of these things, he was falling even further in the polls. So it's not just Trump. They get Trudeau out of there. That's the main thing that kind of spurred all of this. This is why you have this other guy who rises up out of nowhere and is enshrined as the party leader, and then you have all the rhetoric changing on these things, all this stuff going on. So let's see. You have, I guess, another seat going Liberal. I don't know where that was, but you have some that are still staying with the Bloc Québécois. I don't know. You will have some Conservative seats in Ontario, but there's not going to be that many of them that are going to be called at the end of the day. Let's refresh. Obviously, it's going to be like 99 to 1 basically, but 182. So if your best case is they fall below 172. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, probably is not going to happen, but that would be the best case for the Conservatives as it stands now. And then, I mean, the NDP is getting shellacked. Bloc Québécois, they might get 29. They could eat into that Liberal margin in Quebec, but it's not gonna be by much. So it's like, they're calling seats. The seat calls are close, but there's 280 seats remaining. Which way are those seats going to go? So that's a good question. Let's see. Videomaker 2341 says Canada in the 50s probably would say Ike is Hitler. Well, I mean, it's true that Eisenhower deported a lot of illegal aliens. People didn't have a problem with it then because people had common sense back then. But now it's like, oh no, the worst thing in the world for some people. It's disheartening that's the way the narrative goes. But I don't think that that's really what's driving this buzz around Trump's numbers or whatever. Because even within some of these really bad polls for him, the deportation program policy, as we saw from CBS News, was like 57% approve, 43% disapprove. So, you know, it's not, I mean, Canada's just lost common sense entirely. They've always had less than we've had. John Waffle, H2P, thank you for the 5. GigaChat of NPC says Conservatives gained 2 seats in Newfoundland. It's now 3 Conservative, 3 Liberal in Newfoundland. Well, they can enjoy them while they last. Well, hold on. Could you see a tie? I mean, you could possibly see a tie of ridings. It just, well, no, because it's not 3-3. It's going to be probably 4-3. Because, I mean, I don't even know why they haven't called that one. I know that they might be waiting for more to report, but they're not doing that in other districts, so I don't know what it is exactly. Ash K2 says Trump is damaging conservatives here and abroad. All he had to do is keep his mouth shut. Also, Pennsylvania registration is trending left again. Thanks, Donald. Well, the Pennsylvania registration, there is a primary coming up for the Democrats for their court race. So I would highly suggest caution on those numbers, because we saw it in North Carolina for a week too, and then it went back to normal. So we'll see how that moves moving forward. I'm not ready to say that Pennsylvania's voter registration is trending left because you have 1 week where it doesn't. It could be very well this anomaly. As for Trump damaging conservatives here and abroad, if Donald Trump's rhetoric is going to impact an election where the conservative is running away from Trump, that's not Donald Trump's fault. That is Canada's fault, if anything. Because if their country and their future, which I'm not going to even say Polyev would have saved them, because he's not all, I mean, he's better than what you're going to get, but he's not perfect. I'll tell you that much. But if Canada, if you want to blame anybody for this race, I think Trudeau dropping out, Polyev not knowing how to handle himself down the stretch, that's the number one thing, because a lot of the votes you saw drop off from the NDP from last time, from the Bloc Québécois from last time, from the Green Party from last time. Where are they going? Those votes are mainly going to the Liberals. So clearly you could say it's Trump's fault for something, or Trump says something, but Trump was saying it before Trudeau dropped out, and Trudeau was losing in the polls. So if there's any instance you could point to and say, oh, it's this thing, it was Trudeau. There's no universe that Trudeau stays in and wins. I don't care if Trump puts tanks on Canada's border. Probably do even worse, to be honest, because then it would just showcase the weak leadership. But you have this new guy, Mark Carney, and he comes out of nowhere, assumes the mantle, and then people are just going to forget about everything over the past, Trudeau years, because all the campaign was Trudeau, Trudeau, Trudeau. Then you're going to be able to make this an issue. You're going to capitalize on it. Pierre is going to try to also capitalize on it instead of making his prime focus attacking the Liberals. But he did both. I don't care. You saw what was center, what was front and center. He allowed it to be front and center. You don't get to blame extraneous forces. There's plenty of conservatives across the globe. They're going to have election victories this year. There's plenty of liberals that had election victories in 2024. Biden had a very bad approval rating. It didn't damage liberals in the UK. Weak conservatives emboldened liberals in the UK because it allowed the rise of the Reform Party, and now they're probably going to arguably be the number 2 there, and they're probably going to have a chance next election to put themselves in a position to remain competitive or at least have a coalition. So we'll see. Walrus Hunter says, what do you think of the election site going down? I don't know. I mean, we saw it. I don't know. Stephen Knizik says, I'm just hoping the elections will convince Alberta that secession is preferable. They possibly could. Agent Gabe says, no way Rep is doing a Canadian election stream. Who won? Peter Griffin? Well, I don't know if that's a reference to the way one of the people look. But I don't think Mark Carney. Let me see. No, he doesn't look anything like Peter Griffin. I guess that's unrelated. But thanks for the super chat. Wyatt says Canada deserves this. They always stick up their noses at Americans. Meanwhile, they live in the least threatened nation on earth. Yeah, I mean, they think it's a horrible thing because somebody says, "Whoa, 51st state. Oh, this is a threat to my sovereignty." What about what happened at our southern border for the past 4 years and honestly 40, 50 years? You talk about threats to sovereignty. That's a threat to sovereignty, and our own judges won't even let us fix the problem. But, oh, how dare Trump make an offhand comment that probably is not going to ever become anything. The only time they love their country is if it's despite America. It will never, like you talk about the mass, talk about mass immigration, their own country. Oh, but there's paperwork, and yeah, give me a break. Paperwork or not, it's transforming itself beyond what it is. And you talk about national sovereignty, and you allow your country to become New Delhi within a 30-year span. You lose the right to talk about national sovereignty. You can say that you think that's a good thing, and it's cultural enrichment. It's not sovereignty. You lose the right to talk and whine about national sovereignty when you allow your own nation to do this to itself. I'm sorry, but that's the way it works. You completely lose the right to complain about anything Donald Trump says. So you can't expect me to sit here and go along with it because you don't care about your own sovereignty. You care about spiting the United States. You care about being a Marxist nation. It's like if Vermont was a country. That's what you would get. Vermont mixed with Minnesota with a little bit of Washington and Oregon mixed in. That's your Canada. When it comes to Alberta, I mean, maybe you got a little bit of a tiny dash of Texas. Very, very small. Very small. But there's no even saying that would be a reliably Republican state. At least not with the media and the way that they've portrayed Trump over these past years in Canada. I mean, seriously. But I agree. I mean, Canada doesn't have the right to talk about national sovereignty or anything when this is what they do to spite Donald Trump. I mean, it's incredible if you want to say that's the reason. Big Hoss 81 says, looks like at least a polymarket lib majority has collapsed. We could look at that as well. Obviously, we can see that, now it's moving towards minority. But, I mean, even then, so because the Bloc Québécois started to overperform, now they're moving towards minority. So, it's unlikely they get a coalition with them. I don't think the Conservatives are. It could just be people pumping the markets. Because, I mean, it's clear if you look at this, if you have it 152 to 149, Poilievre is not at 2%. He's much higher than 2%. And they've already called it for the Liberals. So a liberal minority could happen, but I think that the betting markets are just doing what the betting markets typically do. But I just think that it's the fact that the Bloc Québécois is doing much better than some people expected might be causing, or at least better than they were earlier on in the night, might be causing some of these seats to move a little bit back and forth. But we understand Alberta. There's a lot of conservative seats out there. They're going to probably end up with over 100, like 120. I don't think they're going to really get to where they need to be, in my opinion, for any sort of a conservative victory. So let's see. The video maker 2341 says Quebec says we're liberal degenerates, except we only speak French while doing it. Well, it's Quebec. They speak French, and that's, I mean, other than that, they're relatively liberal. They're more nationalistic, though. I will say that, but it's more of like a Quebec French thing than it is like a Canadian thing. Wyatt says, anyone notice AI is being used to censor chat? I think that's the way that the YouTube algorithm has always worked. That's not my problem. It's not my fault. There's also a difference between top chat and live chat. So Joe Longo says, your pronunciation of sovereignty makes me cringe. I feel like it sounds better. It's, you know, I of all the accusations of mispronunciation I've gotten over the years, I've never gotten that one before. So if somebody else wants to chime in with the pronunciation, feel free. But say Newfoundland again. Sovereignty. I feel like I've said both. I don't know. We're a little tired. We've been up since a long time. We've been up for a while. So, yeah, sovereignty. Okay. I think sovereignty sounds better, but I will say sovereignty. Okay, come to think of it, maybe sovereignty does sound better. Thank you, Videomaker2341, even though that just spells the word out. It doesn't tell me how to pronounce it. But okay, we get it. If it's a common theme with the channel, the running list of things that I've mispronounced, you could probably write a book. But let's see, 54, 30, 37, 12. Yeah, I mean, the popular vote's closed for now. We're still waiting on several places to be called, and even the Maritimes, and then we're going to probably have to... Yeah, thank you, Videomaker. Sovereignty, okay. But, I mean, it's just... It is embarrassing for Canada. I will say that overall, this is something that the United States, I mean, over time, you can have this I told you so moment, at least for some of these Canadians, Albertans probably, they'll want to leave Canada, want to become the 51st. If anybody's going to become the 51st state, or should in Canada, it should be Alberta. You know, Saskatchewan as well. But I mean, the map would be hideous. I mean, are you kidding me? We have this nice little, boxed thing, and obviously you have Alaska, you have Hawaii, but Alberta, it's like, what is this thing sticking out at the top of the head of the nation? That's like, I don't think that's gonna look good on a map. But it's like, got a globe in front of me. It's like, yeah, it would not look too good. It would not look too good. I could tell you that much, but, you know, for the sake of them, it would be better. I think possibly Wexit is more feasible. Western Canada, they'll split from Eastern Canada. They already have a lot of cultural differences at play. They already have many different political worldviews. It would make more sense if they did that, if they split, if they formed their own nation. Will it happen? I don't know. But could it happen? Potentially. Probably within our lifetimes. I don't think that this is going to change really anything overnight. It's kind of like a boiling frog type of thing. Which isn't good for Canada, by the way, but it's just the way it is. But Windsor, I mean, parts of Windsor are going conservative. The tides have turned in Essex, some of these other places, for now. So conservatives are doing better in some of those ridings. But again, you talk about the balance of power. Let's refresh it. I can't imagine. Yeah, see, now it's back to where you would expect it. So yeah, it's 177. It's not exactly like, oh, they're running away with this majority government, but minority government's on the table, but conservatives are not going to be within striking distance of the seats. I mean, I hate to break it to people, that was somebody just pumped money into the markets for one reason or another. So that's what I was expecting. Now Liberals gain 1 net seat. Conservatives are gaining in the popular vote. It is 44-41. So I would anticipate when Quebec is done counting, the Bloc Québécois party is going to start dipping. And by the way, I will say this about Canada because, broken clock is going to be right twice a day. We're probably not going to be witnessing them count ballots for 3 years like we do in the United States. There probably will be some places that are going to take, hours, and that's fine. But you're not going to see this ridiculous shift. You're not going to see this ridiculous shift. So Robert C for 2 says, I'm just now tuning in. What did I miss? Well, the Liberals are heading for their 4th straight victory and possibly their first majority government since before 2019. So, it's Canada. They're cooked. They're cooked. We knew this was going to happen. The moment Trudeau went out and you saw the polls surge for Carney, we knew this was going to happen. But, it's seeing Canada just do this is okay. And Pierre is losing his riding, which it's just one precinct. So give it time. But this one I think could actually happen. Jagmeet Singh is losing his riding by 21 points, but it's just one precinct. So we'll see. Carney was projected the winner of his, and the Quebecois guy was projected the winner of his. See how badly I'm mispronouncing that? I probably am pronouncing that one right. The video maker 2341 says, I've been to both Bangladesh and India. Would not be surprised if Canada becomes indistinguishable from these countries soon. It's true. And when you import so many people from these places, the neighborhoods are going to look like the home neighborhoods. You don't have time for assimilation. There's no time for millions upon millions of people to overnight start assimilating. You don't even have an established Canadian culture within that. So it is true that over time, it's going to start to look like that. And you know what? These people are fleeing these places for a reason. But still, the communities over time, they're going to end up looking exactly like the ones they left. And people are really expecting anything different. It is mass immigration is suicidal to the fabric of a country. They can sit there and cope and call people names for pointing that out, but it's 100% true. And you don't see, if you saw what was happening in Canada could you imagine it? It'd be the equivalent if India received people from a different nation which was as bad, as worse off as certain parts of India are, to India, and you would see 1 billion people from that hypothetical nation move there. Would they be Of course they wouldn't be happy about that. So why should Canadians? Because they have to feel bad about it because they're white or something like that? Is that really are we really playing that game? Is that really what we're doing here? You gotta get it under control. You seriously have to get it under control. You will lose your country. And they don't care. For some reason, they don't care. It's astounding to me how people don't. But I think it's an older generation thing. I think the younger generations in the poll, Trump was not the number one issue. But for some of the older generations, Trump was the number one issue. For the younger generations, the economy, immigration. So maybe it's going to take the younger generations to save Canada. Maybe that's what it's going to take, as it might take it to save America. But what I'm seeing now, it's like if Reddit was a country. It is abysmal. But the younger generation, they're the ones supporting the AfD in Germany. They're the ones supporting the right-wing populist parties. They're the ones supporting reform in the UK. They're the ones that gave the PPC the largest vote share in the last election in Canada, back when they were relevant because O'Toole was such a tool. Now, I mean, I would assume that Polyev is winning a majority of them, but the boomers are the ones backing Carney because I don't know. And, you have plenty of boomers that are obviously conservative in America, some of Trump's biggest backers, but then you also have a fair share of liberal boomers here too. Because a lot of like the super boomers or the older generations, like the 80 plus voters, they were very, very pro-Trump. A lot of them, sadly, people that voted for Trump in 2016, we all probably know a family member that's passed away or, a friend of a family or something of that nature within that time frame. And, a lot of people said that would cause the younger or younger voters would cause the GOP to die out. Now, the GOP is actually stronger than ever when these younger voters vote. In fact, Trump did extraordinarily well, historically well, especially with voters under the age of 22. But 18 to 24 voters voted to the right significantly of those 25 to 29. And it's possible that the younger generation past that could end up being even more conservative. So there's kind of two different younger generations. I mean, even some of like the older generations, not, moving to the right maybe, but more synonymous at times with certain younger millennials than they are with some of these newer, more conservative Zoomer voters who were born in let's say 2005 or something. So that's the way it is. Let's see. American Nerd 1776 is literally any other country in the world is better than Canada. It's a rivalry we have. I mean, I get it. Wyatt says the problem with Canada is everyone lives in a city. They make people dependent and weak. I think that's part of it. I'm not going to talk about that super chat because I disavow that aspect, that possibility. Peaceful secession only. Peaceful only. The Smirking Wolf says TDS seems stronger this time around. Here and abroad, I was hoping there would be more decorum in Trump era part 2. But yeah, I mean, there was for a while. And it's like the things I've seen people get hung up on are the dumbest things possible. It's not even about, I understand why somebody might not be happy with their 401k going down because some of the tariff rollout's been shaky. Obviously, the market's recovered half its losses, but I could understand why people would oppose the magnitude of the tariffs. I think that selective tariffs, certain reciprocal tariffs, depending on how they're done, those would be probably and I think that still might be Trump's endgame with the tariffs, because I think a lot of it is just negotiation. But I could see why people would be upset with that. I can't really see why people would be upset with the fact that Trump wants to cut government spending. Now, you can talk about the fact that Doge didn't do enough, and you'd be right. But that's not the critiques that I'm hearing from a lot of the people on the left about Doge. It's, how dare they try to gut spending when this is something Trump campaigned on and it was completely fine. It doesn't exactly make sense. It doesn't exactly add up to me why this is some major story. So you have that, and then you have the whole immigration thing where they're losing their minds because you have a lot of deportations, not enough deportations, but then you have people who were deported who maybe, this guy didn't get, this one guy out of 100 or hundreds of thousands didn't exactly get a trial the right way or whatever. And it's like, he's still probably an MS-13 member. Why do you care so strongly about this more so than anything else? You didn't care about the amount of people that never entered the country properly over the past 4 years, but this guy's your hero, who's very likely a gang member, was caught, arrested with other gang members, has tattoos that possibly are hinting that he's a gang member. No, they're completely and totally just fine, or they're totally fine with one of those, but this is a big issue for them. They're now saying, because they were deporting a mother who was an illegal alien who had a baby on the U.S. soil, and she took the baby with her. They said Trump is human trafficking a a 2-year-old back to a country that they've never been. But it's like, okay, technically, even if the baby's a citizen, which I don't think birthright citizenship should be a thing, you're mad that Trump is keeping the families together. If he was separating, it was a problem. If he keeps it together, it's a problem. Many cases of the separations were technically the moral thing because, at least in the context, because a lot of the parents would actually be human traffickers. But you have people that throw out all common sense just because, I don't know, and then they'll just flood the zone and gish gallop with a bunch of nonsense and kind of just use it to drive home stupid talking points and energize their own side. And if we actually got energized and kept voting, it would be the most hilarious thing in the world. But then, conservatives and Trump voters, they'll only vote when it's presidential year. Many of them. I think a midterm year more will vote than like a special election. But it's like, guys, these are not issues that Democrats should be running on and winning on. These are not issues that are popular in the general public. I completely just don't comprehend that. I don't comprehend why that would be, it's why I don't buy all the approval polling on certain issues. Because if it's like the economy or tariffs, that's one thing. I think sometimes people, when it comes to like inflation, they're a bit antsy. It's like the guy's been president for 3 months. I think you want him to appear like he's doing something more than you actually want to watch the prices fall. I was just saying some people think that way, and I think it's rash. But I think a lot of the polling, I say it's a response bias, and we'll get vilified for it. But a lot of the time back in 2024, I said it was a response bias in the summer, and I got completely vilified for it. But I was proven right. And then the Kamala Harris campaign comes out after the election, and what do they say? They say, no, we actually were never ahead. Why were the public polls showing this? And it's because internal polling, typically it's more in depth than the public polling. So I think a lot of these people just whining about Trump all the time, it's strange. I don't know what percentage of it is really real. I don't really see it in the public sphere, maybe because it's Texas and there's not a lot of Democrat activity here. But I don't know. I don't really believe this notion that Donald Trump is historically unpopular the way the left is trying to frame it. And once again, when you look at the Republicans in the sample, highest approval rating ever. Look at the independents in the samples of these approval polls. He's at like 25%. That doesn't add up. It means that they're getting more liberal independents in the samples. It's the same thing we saw with Kamala Harris in the polling. The same exact thing. I'll probably concede the fact that he's dropped a few points. Possibly that goes up if you fix the tariff debacle, if you get some deals done or something. It's going to go right back up. But I just don't understand some of what's going on. But I do think that you can't say it's going to make this massive midterm impact because you're still a year and a half away and then a little bit of time on top of that away from when people are going to be voting in the midterms. So, I mean, even then, Democrats don't have a path to a House supermajority or a Senate majority. So what do you expect? What are we gonna do about that? That's a whole nother thing. But as you can see, conservatives are 13 seats behind. There's plenty of seats remaining in British Columbia, mainly in Vancouver. Again, those urban seats in these liberal cities, a lot of them are going to go heavily in the liberal column. But Manitoba, will Manitoba flip? It does seem as if it will to the conservatives. As we can see here, let me refresh Polymarket. Polyev is now at 4%, so he somehow went up despite the Liberals being projected the winners. British Columbia Liberals expected to win that one. The Manitoba still going blue. Blue is in conservative because it's Canada. But yeah, the popular vote is narrowing, so that's something. But we'll see if that stays narrow because I don't think the Bloc Québécois is going to stay at 8%. Because you talk about third parties, I mean, them dropping in general have costed the Conservatives a lot of seats, and that we know. But by how much is the other question. So let's see. Videomaker2341 says white man gets treated better in Bangladesh than in Canada. I don't know about that. That might be pushing it. I don't know if I'd go that far. But guys, make sure you guys like the stream. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel if you have not yet subscribed. Let's get to 219,000. I don't know how close we are. Let's see. But make sure we can get to 2,000 likes. And we're less than 200 subscribers away from 219K. So make sure you guys like the stream down below. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. But let's go back to the let's see. So have they updated? Okay, so Pierre's losing his own riding. I don't think that's going to hold. But Singh is trailing by 8.5 in his riding. That might be more likely to hold depending on what happens. So it's true that the Conservatives are actually winning plenty of these third-party ridings that they weren't winning before. So maybe that possibly could raise their floor if that holds. We still have yet to see. I mean, if you look at the projected seat totals, Conservatives are at 112. Liberals are at 183. So, again, it's still possible that you end up getting a minority government. But as it stands in the seat projections, the Liberals are above that. But, again, we have more votes to count. But I'm not too hopeful. Let's see. Suffering overdue says, in hindsight, what could Pierre have even done to win? Seems like he was stuck between a rock and a hard place with Trump and tariffs. Well, I think Trudeau is the main thing. Because if you're beating the hell out of this guy, even when Trump is talking about, oh, we're going to make him governor, and that probably played a role. And they're like, we got to do something. They yank out Trudeau. They replace him with this guy nobody's ever heard of and try to make him this hero. And it worked for them, and they did try to capitalize on the Trump thing in the process. So it's difficult, but you gotta find a better angle than whatever he did, and the attacks didn't work clearly. And if you want to tie in Trump, because he did attack Trump a lot, Pierre. If you want to tie in Trump, you're gonna have to tie in Trump to Trudeau, and then tie in Carney to Trudeau, because if you have the three together, unpopular figures, and you do it effectively, say this is the same failed leadership. Donald Trump is talking about invading Canada because of people like you, things like that. Obviously, I'm a Trump guy. This is America, but if I'm in Canada, that's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say Donald Trump is talking about invading our national sovereignty, I think I got it right, because of people like you, because of weak leadership like yours. It's not me. I don't know why you would attack me. He's gonna walk all over you. That's why he endorsed you. Where was this rhetoric, Pierre? If you want to talk about Trump, that's how you do it. You don't attack him directly. You attack him tied into your opponent. I didn't see any of that. People, feel free to send me any clips you can find about that. But it's he came off weak. Yeah, you look like an alpha next to Trudeau. A 5-year-old can look like an alpha next to Trudeau. It's not saying anything. Trudeau is one of the weakest leaders we've ever seen on the national stage or the international stage, probably ever. I mean, he's a dope. He's a clown. I think Biden has more testosterone than Trudeau, and Biden is like 90 and has dementia. Who would you rather have lead your country? Well, at least Biden's funny. Trudeau is just he has mental agency and he's a mess. So I think that should tell you something. But in terms of your super chat, I think that's the answer. You choke. People in chat saying Canadian Romney. Yeah, I think that's a big problem, in my opinion. Now, he did well among younger voters, most likely, as a lot of the pre-election polls showed. And the results do tend to be in line as of now with a lot of the pre-election polls. There's more votes to be counted for sure. Alberta, parts of Ontario, we don't even know how these seats are going to go, but you see where the flips are. It's not looking particularly good for the Conservatives. They've only projected one Liberal flip in the Conservative side. To my knowledge, yeah, only one. I know it's early. They've projected, let me see how many Conservative flips from Liberal. Not a whole lot. They needed a lot of them, and they got one. One projected. They'll probably get more, but only one has been projected. And then from third party, there hasn't really been enough flips that have been official, but they're not getting what they need in these places. So we'll see. If you are Pierre, hopefully you win your own riding, but he loses his own riding. I mean, and people still want to sit here and say it's 100%, because you could say partially it's a domino effect, Trump's involved. Yeah, I mean, you can't say he didn't play any role in the election when he became a big issue in the election, but if you're losing your own riding, that is not Donald Trump's fault. That is your own fault. So I think he's going to win that riding when it's all said and done. I don't want to, come out and say that he's going to lose it when it's, 5 out of 200. That's 2% reporting. We see how that typically goes in America elections. But, I mean, if he loses his own riding, you kind of have to never show your face again in politics. It's different if you're like a third party, like when Maxime Bernier lost his. It's like, okay, you had a splinter party, you barely lost your riding, whatever, in a very conservative area. I get it, but this is different. Michael Drader says too many Edmontonians and Calgarians would much rather prefer Alberta remain Canada's sanitation napkin. Yeah, and they do look down on Alberta outside of Canada, and you do have a lot of, you have some people in the, but at the end of the day, if you want to look at the election in Alberta, there's a chance that Conservatives end up sweeping almost every single riding in the place. This is not where the election has been won or lost. You're getting probably an overall, well, maybe there will be one place in Saskatchewan that goes blue, but other than that, it's like you get 1-2 ridings in both of these places that end up going to the Liberals. I don't think that that's necessarily the main reason for what's going on tonight, especially because that's not going to be what determines it. Carl Bruff for 10 says this is a greater fumble than 2022. Honestly, Canadians approved. They are not capable of thought and must be protected by Americans as a territory. Yeah, 2022 in America had a lot of moving parts to it. And it's different in Canada. You could say, well, it's like a House of Representatives. It's like people aren't voting for the individual candidates usually. There's a name on the ballot that gets to vote for your stuff. But usually these are not localized style elections. You're going to have Pierre run advertisements, and then you're going to have Carney run advertisements. If it was like a locally designed thing, then Trudeau being replaced wouldn't really change much. It'd be like, replacing Kevin McCarthy with Mike Johnson type of thing. If McCarthy had a horrible, or it's more comparable to Mitch McConnell with John Thune in the Senate, because McConnell, historically unpopular, John Thune, still kind of a rhino, obviously, but definitely somebody that's more generic and is not viewed as unfavorably in the general public as McConnell, who's like 21% favorable, 60% unfavorable. It's ridiculous, but it's not fully comparable, but yeah, it is way worse for sure. But that's on them. That's not on us. That's on them. The Videomaker 2341 says thoughts on Trudeau's father. Well, people liked his dad in Canada to an extent. Back in the day, they did. But he's not his father, and I can't exactly say his father was all that to begin with. I don't really know much about Canadian history, but his father was good enough for them to elect him, even based on nostalgia, and he's not even his father. So some people say his father is somebody else from Cuba. So that's a whole nother debacle. I don't know what's true and what's not, but he bears some resemblance, but either way, I assume you're just asking about his father in Canada. Michael Stevens for 5 says, Polyev after this election should be considered the Canadian Romney who let a party blew it. 25-point lead. Romney never had a lead that big. Maybe you could compare him to Hillary Clinton or somebody that or Dukakis, who had a big lead and lost it, even though I don't think Dukakis was really up by as much as people will say. But yeah. It's Canada has Stockholm syndrome. Yeah, I mean, even if it is 100% Trump's fault, it says more about Canadian voters and their pettiness more than it says about Donald Trump trolling Canada. Because I don't think that you can even expect Donald Trump to care what Canadians have to say. Because why should he? He's the president of the United States. He's not the president. He's not the prime minister of Canada. This election is going to have zero impact on my life. If anything, you could make the case that Donald Trump would have preferred Carney. He did endorse Carney. Some people will say that's reverse psychology. Either way, I think Carney probably is somebody you could make. They're both weak. I don't think he cares. Pierre's weak because he can't set the narrative to save his life. And that does show a massive lack of leadership. He softened his rhetoric on immigration down the stretch. That's an issue where you on offense, you're going to get more support, not less. Although, to be fair, many Canadians are cocked. But even so, if the Liberals have to cave into our position more on the topic, we shouldn't be caving into theirs because it shows that they're shifting the Overton window. Be the equivalent of Trump saying, oh, we just need a little bit of amnesty, when the left is trying to say that for electoral purposes. It wouldn't make sense. Even if it polls well on paper, when you ask it with a leading question, does not make it the popular position when it comes to the ballot box. Just the way you ask a question. Same-sex marriage polls a lot better than gay marriage. They mean the same thing, but why exactly? Because it's the framing. Pro-life laws are going to poll better than abortion ban, or common sense restrictions, or a X-week minimum versus an X-week ban. The left does a very good job of, with their diction, trying to spin certain topics, and it's up to us to match and exceed that level of how you sell these things. Not cave into them entirely when it's not popular. Obviously, if something's unpopular, don't talk about it. But certain things are not third rail issues and might not poll well, but you can spin them in your favor, just like Donald Trump did in 2016 with mass deportations. So, yep. Someone said, makes me interested in how the midterms. This is not going to impact the midterms. I don't know why people think that an election in Canada has any impact on anything that happens in America. Maybe you could say trade deals or something of that nature. I don't think that's going to have much impact. And even if it did have an impact on the economy in the long run, it's like one domino. And I don't know if it would matter who their prime minister really is when it comes down to their relationship with Donald Trump. Both of them have said similar things about Donald Trump. But like I've said, the main problem with Pierre's campaign is you have two villains in Canada that are unpopular. And yeah, one of them is Donald Trump. And I would, as somebody who loves Donald Trump and doesn't care that much about Canada, if I'm trying to get this guy to win, I will tell him, you tie this new guy to these other guys. Because Trump made Trudeau look weak, and I think that played a role in forcing out Trudeau. And when you have this other guy, he's got the same policies and the same weakness, and Pierre doesn't show strength and project strength, what do you think is going to happen? The narrative is going to be set against you. when it comes to Donald Trump and elections, a lot of Republicans will let the Democrats set the narrative, but Donald Trump always does a good job of setting the narrative first when it comes down to him, to the point where he's able to dominate the conversation in a way a lot of people are not able to do. And the Republicans still haven't really learned from that in so many ways, and it's the way it is. Now, we'll see what happens ahead of 2026, but I don't think you're going to see a blue wave or a red wave. I think it's going to be close in the House and the Senate. Some of these races will be close, but I don't think you're going to see much movement in either chamber. Maybe if the economy's in the gutter, Democrats could gain like 16 seats in the House, but that's not very good historically. Like, we don't want to lose the House, but they're not going to have, that's not a wave. A wave would imply you win at least like 25 seats, you would have to think. I mean, even 2014, it's debatable if you even want to call 2014 a wave year. I think you could say it is, just based on the Senate and the magnitude in the Senate, but it's like, you won 16 seats and really padded an already big majority. What the Democrats would be doing is just flipping a narrow majority. Maybe you can say it's like, oh, a standard midterm. It's not a wave. 2014, you could maybe call a wave, but even then that's pushing it. 2018, you can call a wave, even though some Democrats were hoping for like 60 seats. They never got close. And you could make the case that, that given all the talk, it wasn't all that for them. Now, 2020, 2022 was not a wave. It was not a blue wave. Certain states had blue waves. Certain states had red waves, like Florida. 2022 was not a wave year in general. You're talking about what, 50% of the popular vote for the Republicans, 47.3% for the Democrats. You had a year where it was a red year, but it wasn't a wave year. 2026, I think you could see the opposite. The video maker 2341 says thoughts on Keanu Reeves. I don't have any thoughts. Not really. Asking the wrong person. So yeah, we'll see what happens in the midterms, but we have a long way to go. That's why we're here to cover it. Donald Trump's administration, what's going to happen? Hopefully, you need to get the tax bill, because the House needs to act. I think everybody can agree that more needs to be done. The House needs to act, needs to pass through his agenda. People want it. As for the deals, I think you need to see trade deals. At least some compromise needs to come through, so it shows that he's getting something out of these tariffs. I think that you're going to need to, the deportations, I say keep going. But let's see. When will they vote on the SAVE Act? Congress is back. Well, they need to vote soon. Congress needs to act too. And it's not just about Donald Trump, because you have Republicans in Congress. They're on the ballot. Trump is not. And if they're not delivering for the American people that voted for Trump, then why are, I think everyone needs to vote, obviously, but you're still going to have people that won't show up, because if you want to show up, you're going to have to be motivated. You're going to have to care. Not everyone's going to care about politics as much as we do. And that's to an extent a sad thing, but at the end of the day, I can understand why. It's stressful at times. It is. You have a lot of stupid people saying a lot of stupid things. But I will say that you got to get people voting, and on top of it, if you want people to vote who are less inclined to, you're going to need to tout wins that you get from your from your party. That's really what it comes down to. You're not running. Trump isn't going to run in 2026. But again, I will say, if they want to put an impeachment vote up there on the Democrat side, that can motivate his voters. Thank you, Shri Tanadar, whatever his name is, from Michigan. Total grifter. Gets up there in broken English and starts talking about, we are going to impeach Trump. Okay, buddy. Okay. We'll see how. I honestly hope they go through with it. or not through with impeaching, but put it up to a vote. Like seriously, because then you get Democrats who are on the fence in these districts, and then they'll vote to impeach Trump. It's not going to work out for them. They'll think it'll work out for them, and it won't work out for them. So let them try. Let them try. That's what I'm saying. Videomaker says I will vote in the midterms. There's no reason not to. I mean, when you have this country on the line to the point where there's so many people who don't show up, people need to get out and vote. Talk about it all we want, but if you can't get out and vote, it's all for nothing. So we got to focus on that. So everybody needs to vote. I'm not the person that needs to be told that, but there's plenty of people that do. So someone says Trump backtrack on tariffs a bit. He's still good on tariffs, but I wish he would go all the way. Well, I mean, it depends on how he does them. Typically, I think in theory, in the long run, you might be 100% right about, the original plan could have some form of ability to work. But to kind of, like in terms of the intermediary, I think he wants deals to be made. I think that the end goal would be selective tariffs on certain things across the board, reciprocal tariffs that match their reciprocal tariffs. They're going to be higher on certain things for sure. But like the 100-some% on China, that probably is going to dampen the markets for a while. Now, if it means that we're able to trade more with other competitors, because it's true China should be held accountable, then it can work. The magnitude of them, it's very high, obviously. We'll see how it affects certain things. But we do have to bring back some industry. We could have industry here. Plenty of other first world nations do have a more robust manufacturing economy, whether it's Japan, South Korea, even certain countries in the EU. We don't exactly have it. We need tariffs to use as a tool for protectionism. But I can see why people would be upset with the rollout if it's going to impact their 401k, if it's going to impact their, whatever. I understand why people would be upset. But, I agree with the main point behind them, which is we need to use them in order to get what we want, leverage, bring back industry. That's the end goal. Are we going to be able to feasibly replace the income tax with tariffs? I mean, we did it before. How we get back to that's a whole nother thing, because this is a whole different world. So we definitely would have to do probably plenty of other things before we get there. But I like where Trump is going. But I don't know. That we'll just have to see. We'll just have to wait and see. Also, if you're investing in gold, which this is not a product placement, by the way, because I don't have a product to shill right now for you guys, but gold has gone up. I've seen that. Gold has gone up even when the markets have gone down. We'll wait and see. The jobs report this week is going to be interesting. Hopefully it's good. So we'll see. But let's see. Big wins for the globalists are they're I mean, they've had Canada. I mean, it's just their ideology. America's probably one of the only first world nations, besides certain parts of like Central and Eastern Europe, that have some sort of like drive for any form of common sense nationalism. Canada doesn't have that. They wanna put the 6 seats out of nowhere went for the Conservatives. They just called them. I guess it's in Alberta. Let's see. Tariffs are leading to higher inflation and job loss. Well, I mean, tariffs under Donald Trump in his first term, when he enacted tariffs, did not lead to higher inflation. I mean, there was technically some, but it wasn't necessarily significant, and the whole rate of inflation over time was dropping As for job losses, we didn't see that, but it is true if you're talking about broad tariffs at extremely high rates out of nowhere, could that lead to instability in the economy? Yeah, more than likely will lead to some instability. You could talk about a potential long-term gain, but in the short run, yeah, it's going to lead to some instability. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag. So we'll have to see. Over time, I mean, you did see onshoring. You did see thousands of aluminum jobs, steel jobs from China in 2019, especially before COVID. The post-COVID, I mean, COVID itself was just absolutely brutal for what it did to the global economy, and definitely some of Biden's antics and weak leadership in the ensuing years made things worse. But I think the long run is what we're really looking at. So it just depends. It depends. There is going to be this debate on the right about tariffs. I think that in general, you can't deny the fact that Trump's first term tariffs were a good idea. Now, you could talk about the rollout in the second term. What does it mean? Is it negotiation? We could have a discussion about it all we want, all day. But it's not gonna. I don't think it's really gonna change too many people's minds, because when you don't know the end result of something, you're not gonna know what it's gonna do. But we did see some reducing of the deficit with China as well in the last year of Trump's. I mean, even before COVID, 2019, you saw a little bit of reduction with the trade deficit there. So. Okay, let's look at the one NDP winner in Quebec. Their only seat so far. Nothing new between Poilievre and Singh, and they're trailing. Videomaker 2341 says, "Did you not?" And I vote. I always try to vote. I didn't vote in the 24 primary. Because it was pretty much A, a done deal, and B, I was very busy at the time with travel. But as for midterms, it's a different story usually. First vote ever was in a midterm, by the way. But I will say the only candidate I've ever voted for that's won the election that I voted for them in was Donald Trump, to my knowledge. I mean, maybe there's some down ballot thing that's obscure, but that's crazy to think about. Someone said I might need to refresh. Refreshing didn't do anything on the New York Times. But the percentages for the third parties did go up a bit. Not a ridiculous amount, but the popular vote is much, much closer than it was. I don't know if that'll stay the same when more of Vancouver starts to pour in, because we're getting a lot of votes in Alberta, Saskatchewan. If you want to refresh this here, British Columbia, conservatives are getting closer in the betting markets. Now, none of it is now favored for the NDP. And the balance of power now is projected to be a liberal minority government. So we'll see what happens. It keeps going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. I'm not quite certain what to expect the final seat counts to be. We're not going to be streaming all night. It's Canada. If this was anything of note here, we probably would be up till 4 a.m, but it's Canada. So, yep. They're gonna suffer. As somebody put in chat, they will suffer Canada. It's true. I mean, the seat count looks closer than it really is. The popular vote looks closer than it really is. But when you see where the rest of the votes are, it's definitely not looking too good, especially a lot of these are liberal seats that haven't been called yet, and certain parts of Ontario. I mean, there's a couple conservative seats in Quebec that haven't been called yet, but it's pretty much, we know who's going to win. The only question is how many seats do the Liberals get? The third parties definitely have done better down the stretch here. The NDP, as certain other places where they're stronger in the West have come in, they're doing better. But you look at this and it's like they got 18% last time, and right now where are they? 5%. That's the ball game right there, because we know where all those votes went. All those votes went to the Liberals, and that definitely pushed them higher. Now, Conservatives got some from the PC, but, I mean, it's not nearly enough. I mean, they obviously flipped some voters probably that were fed up from the Liberals or just found new voters in general. American Nerd 1776 for 5 says, blame Canada. Seems that everything's gone wrong since Canada came along. Blame Canada, blame Canada. They're not even a real country anyway. I assume that's the South Park song. I don't remember how it went exactly, but yeah, I mean, it's like, are they even real? They're so, like, there's a major country that's so close to us and so apparently, like, similar, and it's like you forget they're there most of the time. It's true. But that's the way it goes. They reap what they sow. They reap what they sow. I mean, it is what it is. It's not going to affect my life in any possible way, whatever happens in Canada. I would want Canada to succeed. I'd want Canada to have strong leadership for their sake. But, at the end of the day, if you could make the case and it happens where the Liberal government is going to go out there and, just absolutely get rolled over by Trump when it comes down to the time to make a deal and they get taken advantage of, yeah, it could, selfishly would benefit. No, the Green Party won a seat. Okay. But let's see. Yeah, Pierre is still trailing. Singh is still trailing. I mean, they haven't put any new votes in, so I don't know how much longer we're going to go for, but if we do hit our goal, I'd probably be more inclined, or if at least we got closer to the goal, which, again, we have 12 minutes to get 14 yellow super chats. I don't know if that's going to happen, but any help is appreciated. Leonardo DiCaprio says, looks like Alberta's joining the U.S. We'll see. Videomaker 2341 says, many Trump 2016 voters were World War II vets. RIP to them. Yeah. Some are still alive, but they're going to be in their 90s and hundreds. But it's sad when it happens, but it's life. And a lot of these people, were going, and a lot of people on the left, like I said, they said, oh, we'll never lose again. And then you saw what happened. The younger voters are moving right off a cliff, and they're not, the left isn't getting the amount of support that they were initially expecting. So, yeah. I mean, so there was another one they've been projected 2 flips already from 3 flips, that is, from, 4, 5. 5 flips from the Liberals have been already projected for the Conservatives. As for Liberals, they flipped 1. I believe they flipped another. Yeah, they flipped 2, 3. Again, the fact that you're losing seats you won in 2021 when you got shellacked is brutal. And a lot of that does stem from the third party complete bottoming out. Namu Zed for 5 says, saw this coming, but still depressing. Canadian boomers live in a different... They do. I mean, a lot of these people, they don't get it. They, I would assume It's no different than how some of the people operate in the United States. If you go and you look at the energy from the TDS people and the protests, a lot of it is, I mean, is there anybody that's like not like a white person under the age of 60 at a lot of these protests? Like even a good chunk of the own Democrat base is not really that enthused, but you look at the special elections, that's the demographic that's going to show up in every special election too. And that's why the left is going to outperform in a lot of these special elections. So it's not really that surprising. Now, the midterms, we're going to hopefully have higher turnout. But I don't know what we're going to, I mean, I'm sure that there's still going to be some issues. We just have to minimize them as much as possible. And hopefully seeing some positive numbers in the economy, if we're able to get there, some positive results, that's going to inspire turnout on our side. But I mean, even then, we had a really strong economy back in 2018, and it didn't exactly save Republicans in the midterms. So it's a little bit, there's a lot of factors at play, but I think turnout and energy is one of them. And if they, like I said, if they try to impeach Trump, go for it. Try. It'll help. That'll help energize. They should do it on the eve of the midterms. That's going to help energize the Republicans, and that should be a part of the messaging, because you have to get Trump's base out there. Because yeah, it's like Republicans, they do suck. I get it. A lot of these congressional Republicans suck, but if we just say, oh, we're going to let the opposition win because our side has some bad eggs or whatever, the other side's going to be worse in every single case. Maybe you could find instances in the 2000s where a Democrat might be preferable. This is 2026. I mean, we have to get the best people where we can get them. But at the end of the day, it's like we really gotta make sure people turn out. Now, it's not connected to the Canadian election in any way. This is this whole other thing. They want to shoot their own country in the foot, feel free. It's sad, but it's not something I need to be sad about. It's sad for them. But yeah, it's like, okay. Now the raw votes are the gap is shrinking, possibly because the NDP is doing better in the West Coast. You're talking about a differential of 74,000 votes. That's not a lot of votes. But, I mean, conservatives have flipped a couple. They flipped Windsor from what I presume to be the NDP. They flipped a seat in Manitoba. So they're gaining some of these third-party seats. The problem is that the Liberals are gaining way more than they're gaining. So they don't have the math to win, but maybe you could make the case that it could be a minority government. I don't know what the hell this is. Now it says conservatives 151, liberals 150. Yeah, that's not true. It's just not feasible. I don't know why it's showing that, but then here it says liberal minority government. So I think somebody's just pumping money into the markets. But I think a liberal minority government could be what they get at the end of the day, just because of the fact that, yeah, the conservatives have hung around when it comes down to seat projections. We could look at the CBC. Okay, it didn't. It's back. If we could pull this up. So, yeah, they're projecting a liberal government, but they are not projecting if it is a majority or a minority. So in terms of the leading, because this can change at any second, but you're talking about 118 to 111. They've called more than they've called here. But then the remainder of the seats, so it's close. It is closer than I think people thought it was, if it stands. But I mean, there's more seats that I don't think any votes have been counted in at all whatsoever. But it's like, yeah. Because how many ridings do they even have in Canada? There's, what, 343. There used to be 338. Now they've gone up. So 343 minus 161 minus 150 minus 23 minus 8 minus 1. So every seat. So even if we just assume that it stays the way it is, because there will be some back and forth. Obviously, looking at it, I do think that Pierre Poilievre is probably going to win his own riding. Okay, maybe refreshing it wasn't a good idea. We're stuck on this again. But yeah, I think that liberal minority government might be what it ends up. Yeah, I don't know why the Conservatives went up here. But the British Columbia, now they're favored for some reason. But then Poilievre is still at 2. They now have the Conservatives for some reason at 1. Yeah, I don't see that happening. Polymarket is just, I don't even know what they're doing at this point. But let's see. I'm going to try to pull this up. It could be the tab that it's in. That's the problem. But that is a good resource to have on the CBC, because otherwise I didn't know how many of the remainder of the seats. I'd have to do a lot of math on that one. But it is looking like it's going to be probably, as it stands now, a liberal minority government, but they haven't projected that either way. But there's a lot of money being pumped into the market, and it's kind of confusing, because I don't think you're going to be seeing a conservative you're not going to have a conservative government. They projected a liberal government for a reason. So I don't know what's going on. QED for 10 says, will you do a live video for Saturday's Australian election? I have no plan on it, because, like, I don't know as much as I know American politics and electoral politics here. I vaguely can put up the results for Canada. Australia is a little bit different. I don't really know much about Australian politics. And I know I actually have a lot of fans from Australia. We get all kinds of Australian super chats here and there, probably just as much as we get, probably more than we get from the UK, and more than we get, or not maybe more, but close to the amount we get from Canadians. Maybe not on this stream, but it's like we could look into it. But yeah, what I'm seeing here is Polymarket just giving weird results. But it is true that it seems like the balance of power is heavily leaning towards a liberal minority government. So, yeah, 8%. Yeah, that's, look, it was, and this was, I guess, less than they expected for a while, if we could look at it, because they were looking at a majority. Now it's off a cliff. So they'll have the minority government. They might not even get the popular vote. Singh is almost certainly going to lose his seat, according to Polymarket. Poilievre is probably going to keep his seat, but the chances he's going to lose it have significantly gone up. So there's that. But anyways, guys, like I said, like the stream. Let's get to 2,000. Subscribe to the channel. Let's get to 219,000. We are 170 away. Regardless, hit that subscribe button if you haven't subscribed yet, guys. Hit that bell for notifications as well. But we can definitely get to 2,000 likes. We're on the nose, almost knocking on the door. But I don't know what's going on with the CBC website. but I got it back temporarily. And what we're seeing here is a very narrow popular vote, which doesn't really matter. But the amount of seats that conservatives are leading in, it's 162, 149. Not a blowout, but also not ideal, because you're looking at a minority government that's going to just remain the same. As for how many other seats are left, I mean, there's a lot of results we don't really know. But, are you really going to see 7 flips from red to blue, blue being the conservatives, when all the networks have called it for the liberals? Probably not. Now, are you going to see a bunch of flips for the liberals? I don't think there's going to be enough for them to win. But the NDP's collapse, that's it. I mean, that's basically would have been enough in a close race, because you look at some of these liberal victories, like this one right here. I mean, the NDP just falling off a cliff in some of these ridings where it's like, oh, they're getting 1%. You'd have to believe they'd be above 10 or somewhere in that ballpark last election. So that's basically, and it hasn't been called yet, but that's one riding that would have flipped from liberal to conservative if it wasn't for the NDP collapsing. So it's stuff like that that really has, in terms of the electoral mechanics of it, played a major role. Definitely, I think, replacing Trudeau, Trump being an issue, Pierre Poilievre not really playing to his strengths, not really trying to set the narrative, kind of coming across like he's folding and sheepish and not playing well down the stretch. That's something all of that has played a role. So you could blame a lot of different things for this. I don't think you could put the blame on one person or one thing. If I had to put the blame on something, it'd be Trudeau being gone, because that kind of played into a lot of this other stuff. And even stuff like Trump's comments, if Trudeau was still in office, they would have started to really hurt Trudeau if he was still running. Because, it's like people say that hurt the conservatives. It would have hurt Trudeau. It was hurting Trudeau. They were mocking him. The liberal media in Canada was mocking Trudeau. It's a big reason why they had him step down. And that was a smart thing to their credit that they did. Now, the Canadian voter, that's a whole nother situation. We've covered that ad nauseum, but I don't know if we could really even fix that issue. I don't know if that issue can be fixed, but we'll see we'll see what the end results are going to be when it's all said and done. Now it's 161 to 150. I don't know if, yep, there it goes. As for the New York Times, Poilievre is still trailing, but he trails by a lot less. Singh is trailing by 23 points. He's cooked. He's done. He's completely done. Now Poilievre is at a 19% shot to lose his seat, according to Polymarket. It would have been funny if there was a comeback and the Conservatives ended up winning, but Poilievre would have lost his seat. I don't even know what would happen in that case, as I'm not Canadian and have no idea how a lot of this stuff works. But that would have been funny. But yeah, 97 to 3. Yeah, it's over. It's been over. I don't know what the seat projection thing is. I don't even know what they're doing. Bloc Québécois, they're only projected 23. Now, maybe if they got 31, you could look and you could see maybe that could feasibly happen. But yeah, 11-seat majority. Now, maybe you could talk about give it 2 years, see what happens. Maybe you get another election in there because it is a minority government. If it stays a minority government, we could talk about that and what that could look like. But I mean, Canada is not, I don't think, even if Trump is not a factor whatsoever, 42% for the Conservatives, is that going to really be able to go up unless there's a resurgence of the NDP? Or, I mean, it's possible Carney becomes as unpopular as Trudeau for some reason. I don't know. It's these are all good questions. We'll have them answered eventually. But let's see. Rest in peace, Snow, Mexico. True. But I mean, like to see more results, more seat projections. I know it's 121, 112 right now, but I mean, if they projected a liberal government, I don't think that if there's going to be a projection next, it's going to be projected minority government. So let's see. Pierre out as leader, 62% chance. Yeah, liberal minority is at 95%. So again, they were anticipating a majority, but they're going to end up with a minority. As for the conservative minority, it's not going to happen. But it's just almost as likely to happen as a liberal majority, so I'm shocked that they're not willing to just project it as a liberal minority government, because that would make the most sense. So, yeah, Polymarket is a little bit drunk. 2011 winning projection was retracted. Yeah, I mean, could the Conservatives form a coalition with Bloc Québécois? I think we've talked about that in like 2019. It never happened. But, I mean, could that happen? It's unlikely. It's relatively unlikely. But I don't think you're going to see a retraction. I just think it's going to be a liberal minority government they're going to get. And I think they probably should make that call pretty soon. Because I don't know what the forecast is on. They do show that British Columbia is now moving more towards the conservative side. So maybe that's true, as more seats have come in from these ridings that were supposed to go for the Liberals, but the NDP dropping didn't matter as much because Conservatives ended up capitalizing on him because they didn't drop enough. And now you have a bunch of possible conservative. I mean, that's technically true. You could make that case. But it's like losing seats from all the seats they lost, or they're trailing it. If you want to do the math, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You have 9 seats that you lost from 2021 to now. If you flip those, you'd be winning right now. You'd be in the driver's seat to win. So that's kind of another thing where they really dropped the ball in that department. But it's gonna be close. It's gonna be closer than I think we initially thought, depending on how the remainder of the votes fall. I mean, there's a lot we don't know, but it's gonna probably be a liberal minority government. Now it's kind of stabilizing. They still, for some reason, are showing the Conservatives in the lead, but we understand that it's likely not going to end up that way. But it's just a 9-seat majority that they are leading in right now, 160 to 151. I mean, I don't think you're getting a majority government at all. Some people might say I'm coping and I don't really have a dog in the fight, but it's definitely going to be a minority government for the liberal side, I'd have to say. Because I mean, is it possible that there'd be five seats on net could flip based on who's leading what? Is it possible? I guess it's possible, but I don't see it. It's kind of too much as it stands now, but it is going down the wire in terms of the margin compared to what we were expecting about an hour ago. But this is still going to end up being a liberal something. I think there's probably a 95% chance it's going to be a liberal minority. So poly market, yep, they look at it, 95% on the nose. I was right. Poly market is onto something, but a conservative minority and liberal majority. Yeah, I think conservative minority is probably more likely than liberal majority at this point, but we know that it's going to end up being a liberal minority. So, yeah, we've been live for 3 hours. Guys, like the stream. Let's get to 2,000. We'll probably wrap it up soon. I know chat's winding down a little bit. We've got 1,500 people left in chat, but if you guys have any super chats you'd like to get in before the stream ends, now would be the time to send them in. If not, that's completely fine. But already 113. Conservatives soon are probably going to end up passing their total from the previous election. I don't think they're going to get the popular vote. I think it's going to be a narrow liberal popular vote. But there's plenty of seats. I mean, we'll see. Because, I mean, if Polyev wins his seat, which I think he probably does, then that's going to be a flip. So that's 152 to 159 to 152. Now, that doesn't mean that other seats can't go the other way, but you're talking about a relatively close election, but nothing's going to change. I guess you could say conservatives are going to have more pull. But, you know, it's like you got to give the Bloc Québécois a reason to vote for you. Because a lot of those voters voting for a party that has no shot, you could possibly pick off some of those more conservative-leaning Quebec ridings if you give them a reason. Base Katz's thoughts on Trump making Columbus Day great again is very good. I think Trump has done a phenomenal job in regards to the cultural issues since he's taken office. I think even a lot of his detractors on the right can't really say he hasn't. I mean, overall with the executive orders, he's done a good job in that department. I mean, it's just all he's just going to do is go back to the way things were, the normalcy of it. Mount McKinley once again, it's back. Obama changed it, political correctness. Trump's obviously a big fan of William McKinley. He said he would do it back in 2015 when he was running for his first term. He didn't do it during his first term, but he did it ahead of this term. So promises made, promises kept. Now Polyev went down in his riding. So if he loses his riding, that would not be good for him. But we don't know where those votes are. It's up to 32% chance he loses. That is not good. See, at the end of the day, if you can't even win your riding, how much blame can you put on Donald Trump? And I'm not saying that he wasn't an issue in this election. I'm just saying the Trump detractors in America are going to make the biggest deal out of this guy who couldn't even win his own riding being placed on the hands of Trump when there's other factors at play. And obviously Trump is a factor at play. I don't think anybody can dispute that. But I think the biggest thing is, getting Trudeau out of there. But how he choked away any possible energy or leverage he had, I mean, are people really not going to blame this guy for his own loss? I mean, usually you are to blame for your own loss. There's things you can do differently. Even in your own win, there's things you can do differently. A win is a win, but I don't know. We'll see. But, the riding, it's early. And Polymarket's not perfect, but he's up to 34% chance at losing his seat. That would be brutal. I think everyone agrees that Jagmeet Singh's going to lose his, which is pretty funny. I mean, he's down by 22 points and counting. So, oh, it's funny. But yeah, I think that the tides turned a bit when a lot of the third-party riding started to come in British Columbia, and they were going more conservative than people thought. That doesn't mean that a lot aren't going liberal, but on top of it, there's a lot more seats that are flipping from red to blue than blue to red on top of it, which has allowed the gap to close significantly. So, but now it's an 11-seat lead. So either way, I think that it's gonna remain around a 10 to 12 seat, maybe like 8 to 12 seat majority for the Liberals, or a plurality, and it's going to be a minority Liberal government. So a lot of chaos can ensue. Another election could take place sooner than later. So there is a silver lining in that. Other than that, it's like, Canada, seriously. I don't understand, like, the notion to separate the man from the policy when the man is the policy. I mean, soon enough they'll know. They will know soon enough if that's the way they want the road they want to go down. What are they going to do? Replace Carney if he continues? He'll lose popularity. What are they going to do? Replace the guy with a new guy? As for conservatives, who is your new leader? Or do you stay with Pierre and run him again when he did the biggest choke job of all time? When you could put the blame on Trump, put it on anyone else. He was involved in the biggest choke job in Canadian politics of all time. I don't even know Canadian politics. I don't need it to know that it was the biggest choke job of all time. So, once again, it is what it is, guys. It is what it is. So let's see what they do. Let's see what they do. But yeah, he is losing his riding, but I mean, will he actually lose it? We'll find out soon enough. Now it's 164, 150. See, now that's a little lofty the other way. I mean, I'm not looking direct. I'm probably gonna advise people to look more at the other raw markets instead of looking at the seat projections. But yeah, Liberal minority is about where it should be. I don't know if Pierre loses his seat. Probably not, given what these markets are showing. But the polling, and here's another thing. Were the polls accurate? Well, I think that they did tend to... Okay, the campaign period, here we go. They did probably tend to underestimate the Conservatives a little bit, but not by a ridiculous amount. I was right in that department, because I had a lot of people saying the polls are going to be wrong. And it's like I sympathize with that, but they were pretty accurate. Maybe a little bit. Like I said, I was expecting a Liberal minority government anyways, or maybe just a little bit below. Popular vote roughly around what I would expect. So Yukon was called. Yukon will be a hold. But yeah, the popular vote probably about 1 point, maybe more than that, but not by much. The Liberals, We're going to wrap it up. We're going to wrap it up. It's past midnight on the East Coast, but Mike Finn says bullish take. Carney will inherit a narrow government, the way of Trudeau and Trump to the south. He may end up like Starmer, only delaying the inevitable. Yeah, it's possible. I mean, there's a lot to look at this and say this is not sustainable for this guy. And if there's an election within the next 2 years, because there's going to be this minority government and because you're going to have similar policy and because his approval rating over time is probably going to dip after a while, then you're probably going to see a different leadership. But in the meantime, yeah, let Trump take advantage of this guy if he can, because I'm not a Canadian. I'm sorry to the Canadians in the audience, but I think a lot of people would understand where I'm coming from if they're here. But we'll see. We got a long way to go before then, but it is true. This is the closest Canadian election that we've witnessed, and it's still, for Canada, leave it to Canada to disappoint, including themselves. A lot of them just don't know it yet, and a lot of them just will say, yeah, but Trump is bad, so we'll keep destroying our country. They'll replace him with somebody else. We'll see. It'll be fun. It'll be funny. Maybe Trudeau will make a comeback. This guy will be so bad, no, it's not going to happen. But, I mean, you never know. You never know. So it is what it is, guys. We'll wrap things up. We hit 2,000 likes. Subscribe before you go. And we will be back with a video tomorrow, maybe about this election, maybe not, but we'll see. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Like, or stream, it's been a while. It's been 3 hours. Like the stream down below. Subscribe, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video or stream. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below. I'll see you guys in the next one. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. Red Eagle out.